The Majority Report. Everything shitty about liberals in one hunched over, lying, screaming, banal, trite human container. Like a one-stop shop museum for what is so repellent about liberal discourse. That's The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Thursday, April 1st, 2021. My name is Emma Vigeland in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, obviously it's April Fool's, Ken Klippenstein of The Intercept joins us to discuss his multiple scoops on Amazon's workplace practices. Meanwhile, President Biden is facing pressure from progressives to increase the size of his infrastructure deal, with the $2.25 trillion figure coming in as lower than was rumored, and with a lot less Green New Deal in that infrastructure package. More on that later. Up to 15 million Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses were contaminated with, well, ingredients were mixed up at a Baltimore factory. However, over 2.8 million shots are being administered throughout the country every day, although COVID cases continue to increase. Here in New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo attempts to take heat off of himself by caving to two progressive priorities that he'd spent years stifling: marijuana legalization and a bill that limits solitary confinement in prisons. Great, but we don't forget, dude. 4 people were killed in yet another mass shooting yesterday, including a child. It occurred at an office complex in Orange County, California. More details aren't known yet. Embattled Representative Matt Gaetz is telling the media that he has offers on the table from Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, and more, even after news broke that he is under investigation for an alleged relationship with a 17-year-old girl. But a Fox News source tells the Daily Beast that such conversations never happened, and that they have, quote, no interest in hiring him. Delicious. The World Resources Institute has found that tropical forest destruction increased by 12% last year despite economic slowdowns due to the pandemic. Experts estimate that this added over 2.5 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. The Supreme Court sided with the Trump administration's FCC, News Corp, Sinclair Broadcasting, and more, unanimously loosening restrictions on broadcast companies to allow for further consolidation, just what we need. And lastly, in Myanmar, the military has shut down wireless internet service, again, I believe, until further notice, as protests against the coup continue to rage. All this and more on today's program. Quick, gotta be quick out there, right? Here, I'm gonna play this because it's April Fool's Day. This is my addition to the soundboard.
Quick, you got 1 minute. 1 minute, Martha's sake. They don't want to hear this, Martha. Come on, let's go. Quick. Come on, let's go.
How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the show. Let's begin talking about Biden's infrastructure package, which he unveiled yesterday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Here he is talking about how he is choosing to increase taxes on people making over $400K a year, plus increasing the corporate tax rate in order to fund said infrastructure package.
As I said 4 years ago, as I said, the Congress passed a tax cut of $2 trillion, increasing the national debt $2 trillion. It didn't meet virtually any of the predictions it would in terms of growing the economy. Overwhelmingly, the benefits of that tax package went to the wealthiest Americans. It even included new investments that would profit by shifting profits and jobs overseas if you're a corporation. It was bad for American competitiveness, deeply unfair to the middle-class families, and wrong for our future. So here's what I do. I start with one rule. No one, let me say it again, no one making under $400,000 will see their federal taxes go up, period. This is not about penalizing anyone. I have nothing against millionaires and billionaires. I believe American capitalism. I want everyone to do well. But here's the deal. Right now, a middle-class couple, a firefighter and a teacher, with 2 kids making a combined salary of, say, $110,000, $120,000 a year, pays 22 cents for each additional dollar they earn in federal income tax. But a multinational corporation that builds a factory abroad, brings it home and sells it, they pay nothing at all. We're going to raise the corporate tax. It was 35%, which was too high. We all agreed 5 years ago it should go down to 28%, but they reduced it to 21%. We're going to raise it back to up to 28%. No one should be able to complain about that. It's still lower than what that rate was between World War II and 2017. Just doing that one thing will generate $1 trillion in additional revenue over 15 years.
Did I must have missed that the first time I watched that clip. Did he really say we all agreed to put the corporate tax rate down to 28% from 35%?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the problem with this whole clip is he's so concerned with, making sure he's not seen as raising taxes on anybody who says below 400K, right? And that ultimately, I think, why the AOC clip is important is, and I'll get this also this graph that will show about the actual tax burden.
Get that ready.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, that he spends the whole clip for some reason, or the whole 2 minutes of that speech on the defense for literally no reason. This is an overwhelmingly popular idea. Sell it to people, because what you're doing is the bare minimum. Again, the Trump administration cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Biden wants to put it back up to 28%. That is the bare minimum. And yet he's trying to make it seem like this is a middle ground approach to put it back up to 28%. No, it should be higher than 35%. Why are you making the Republicans' case for them? He's slipped back into 1990s, don't talk about raising taxes Biden, when he really could just make the case that this graph here makes, Matt. We can play it as we talk about this. So look at how started from, this is at the end of the graph.
Yeah, I'll restart here in a second.
This is how taxes, there we go, for earners, the highest tax rate has gone down over the years. You see all the way up there at 70% in 1950, in the 70s, it's fluctuating around the 40s and 50s, in the 80s, steep cuts, continues to go down,
Meanwhile, getting slightly more and more regressive on the lower end the entire time.
And now here we are in the 2000s, below 30, continuing to go down. Obama nominally raised it, and then 2018, we're all the way down at that 20, or at the, what was the figure for people earning that amount of money? I'm not exactly sure, but we're already down there. So Biden could have spent his time making that case as opposed to talking about why he's meeting the Republicans in the middle ground there. This is a no-brainer approach to raising revenue, and it should be treated with aggression by the Democratic Party. It should be more than what Biden is proposing, and you should not be constantly on the defense and explaining yourself, because that makes you sound weak, and the proposal in and of itself of raising taxes on high-income earners and corporations is wildly popular.
Yeah, and you're right. It is like the playing defense thing, because that's where the attacks are coming from the Republicans. It's just like a massive wish list for all the, the things the Democrats want and stuff like that. And you just have to say these things are necessary. It's not a wish list. What we're actually doing is necessary.
Exactly. And not constantly trying to make yourself seem not radical. But let's turn to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Last night, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went on Rachel Maddow's program to explain why she and her progressive colleagues feel Biden's infrastructure proposal is too small, and I agree with her. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Joe Biden said for COVID relief, he wanted $1.9 trillion. Everybody assumed that would get whittled way down and some much smaller package would ultimately pass. It didn't. It did get cut down a little bit, but not that much. It was basically a $1.9 trillion plan. Sounds to me, from what I hear you saying tonight, that on this one, what may happen is that President Biden may say, listen, today in Pittsburgh, I want $2.25 trillion over 8 years. But when it lands in the House, you and your colleagues may say $2.25 trillion is a starting point, but this needs to be a bigger bill. This needs to get larger before the Senate even gets a look at it. Is it fair to expect that that may be the way this goes?
Absolutely. If we could wave a magic wand and progressives in the House were able to name any number and get it through, which obviously isn't the case, but if we're looking at ideals and what we think is the actual investment that can create tens of millions of good union jobs in this country, that can shore up our healthcare, our infrastructure, our housing, and doing it in a way that draws down our carbon emissions to help us get in line with the IPCC standards, we're talking about realistically $10 trillion over 10 years. And I know that may be an eye-popping figure for some people, but we need to understand that we are in a devastating economic moment. Millions of people in the United States are unemployed. We have a truly crippled healthcare system and a planetary crisis on our hands, and we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. So we can do 10 trillion. That is a thing of political imagination. However, even when you break it up into those two parts, what's important to remember is that this actually isn't just a progressive versus a moderate issue. You have some of the most conservative members of the Democratic caucus, like Joe Manchin, that have even signaled support for a $4 trillion infrastructure plan, which is double in the numbers.
That is incredibly key there at the end, because infrastructure is wildly popular, and a senator like Joe Manchin is going to want that infrastructure to target a state like West Virginia specifically. This is going to go through reconciliation. They're going to get 0 Republican votes on this. So there is no excuse for this bill to be as small as it is. Even though the Biden administration is claiming this is only half of what they plan to do, why make it only half of what you plan to do? This is going to go through reconciliation. You can make it as big as you possibly want. And you essentially have to say how you're going to pay for it, which is Biden saying it's going to be on taxing earners, people who earn over $400,000 a year, and raising the corporate tax rate. You know how you could make it bigger, Biden, is by making the corporate tax rate back to what it was, 35% at a bare minimum, and not going to 28%. It's going to be a way to raise the necessary revenue if you're that concerned about paying for it through the arcane rules of reconciliation. But what Ocasio-Cortez is saying there, and what a lot of progressives in Congress are saying, is that they are going to start from that $2.25 trillion number and build it up in the House. And then you can use Manchin's own words against him. The thing about Manchin is he'll forget what he said the day before, as long as he's able to be at the bill's passage in the 11th hour, able to cut it down and say, look, I made it smaller. I bucked the Biden administration and the socialists like Ocasio-Cortez, basically. But before that happens, it is on her and it is on the other Democrats in the House to make it as large as possible. Because as she makes the case there, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that was passed in order to allow people to survive and bolster the economy after COVID, that was filled with provisions that are going to expire at maximum over 2 years. This package that's $2.25 trillion is meant for 10 years of infrastructure. That is really not enough when you put it in those terms. So that's why she's saying that $10 trillion figure. It's not going to be that. There's no way. But it's got to be a lot bigger than it is. And I think she's making the case incredibly effectively, especially because not all of the provisions in this bill are targeting climate change in the way that they need to be. This is not even close to a Green New Deal. And Biden is whittling it down for seemingly obtuse reasons, especially when you have Manchin who's making it clear that he would want something bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's for reasons of oligarchy, I think. Like, it's because Bill Gates and people like that are talking about I don't know if you saw Bill Gates's comment, how we need multiple parties, because when you start trying to give everyone a job while you address climate change, then you must be reading Karl Marx and singing the Internationale. Like that's the mood of the rich and the powerful and who control the economic, priorities of this country right now. And that's what's very frustrating about the Democrats is like, you think you'd only have to worry about, the actual party caucus and whipping them, but you actually have to, there's these unspoken vetoes by, the money people. And I mean, obviously that exists in the Republicans, but it's very frustrating. I understand when people see it on the Democratic side. Especially
because this has been a strategic move by the Democratic Party to appeal to wealthier people in the country. And you've seen demographic shifts where wealthier donors, now they're trending more Democratic. So part of this is also just appealing to those sensibilities, and you have to fight those forces. And again, the civil war against the corporate wing of the Democratic Party isn't over. And it's just going to get exacerbated when you have those moneyed interests turning to the Democratic Party after they felt very offended by Donald Trump. And Bill Gates is a very vocal voice in that area. We are going to take a quick break, maybe not even a music break, just a pretend break. And then Ken Klippenstein is going to join us to talk about his multiple scoops in The Intercept about Amazon.
We'll bring Ken on now.
No, we'll just bring Ken on. I make it casual here.
If people haven't seen the header for Ken's article about the peeing in bottles and the use of the Amazon logo, people should go check that out.
Yes. There he is, except you're sideways, my dude.
Oh gosh, we don't want that.
Yeah, just do it long ways.
Yeah, you can do it long way. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing all right. I heard you guys talking about the article, graphic art, I think, on the story.
Yeah.
Let me just.
I got up.
Go ahead.
I got Upstaged. Everyone's talking about the art, which they should be, because that was quite a funny picture that they came up with.
If maybe you can pull it up. Basically, Ken has just been on a blitz of reporting on Amazon workers and their internal documents within Amazon that he's been able to get his hands on. So great journalism by Ken. I want to go through all three of those articles that you've passed in the past week, right? So I guess the past 7 or 8 days. The first one that made an incredible amount of waves is the one that Matt may be pulling up here with the artwork of the peeing in bottles one. So here we go. Documents show Amazon is aware drivers pee in bottles and even defecate en route despite company denial, and it's an Amazon arrow going into a water bottle. So good job, Intercept team. There.
Nailed it.
Let's talk about that though, Ken. So, we have been coworkers in the past. You've always been an amazing journalist, but you're blowing up here. You're getting all these Amazon scoops. This first article, which talked about how Amazon's corporate Twitter account essentially tweeted out, "You don't really believe the peeing in bottles thing, do you?" And they sent out a bunch of denials about the fact that they work their drivers and employees so hard that they have to go to the bathroom in bottles or bags in order to save their jobs. But you got your hands on documents that directly contradict their public denial from Amazon News. Not Amazon PR, aptly named, by the way.
So, there had been reports in the past that this was happening. But what I thought would be interesting is, just talking to some folks and seeing what the prevalence is, because, does this happen? It seemed pretty clear, judging on the reporting, that it did on some level, but I didn't have a sense of the proportion. And when I started talking to people, there were drivers that told me they're called delivery associates, where they deliver the packages, who told me there's not a single day I go without doing this. And I was shocked at just how commonly it happens. So not only does it happen, and their PR just lied, and I'm saying lied as in they consciously knew, because what I published, these were internal documents from management discussing the problem and talking about how prevalent it was. That's not to say they did anything about it, because as you say, Amazon, to give the devil their due, they're going to say, "Oh, we actually don't condone that. We tell people not to do it." And that's true. They do, hope that their employees don't do it, but that's because they don't want it to be seen and found out. And, I talked to so many people where I asked them, I said, so did they change the quotas, these bruising quotas that they have to be, delivery quotas, to make it so that you actually don't have to do these kind of things? And I didn't hear a single person say that there were ever any accommodations made. So the reality is, while they can say they're not making their employees do it, if you're going to get fired, you depend on this job to live, you're going to do what you have to do to get by. I mean, these guys, they don't want to do it. They don't like doing it, but they tell me there's no other way that they're able to hit these quotas that they need to do in order to stay employed.
So one of the documents that you found was marked Amazon confidential, and as you write, various categorized as infractions by employees for public urination and public defecation. So basically, outside of their documentation, they're encouraging this kind of practice, or at least turning a blind eye to it as long as you follow through on the quotas in terms of your deliveries, and then admonishing them, at least in documentation, in confidential documents behind the scenes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the fact that it's marked confidential, that tells you so much about, their posture with respect to this issue. It's not so much that they don't want it happening, or else I would imagine they could change the quotas. It's that they don't want it coming out. And the emphasis is always public. And it's kind of it seems to me to be a sort of wink, like, if people don't know about it, then that's another thing. But we don't want this coming out. And so at that point, employees I talk to are under pressure, not just to do these things to hit the numbers, but then hide it afterwards because they're terrified of being, found out and getting reprimanded for it. So it's really this, I don't know what word to use other than dystopian, where not only are they having to do these dehumanizing things, they're desperately having to cover it up so that management doesn't see. But I mean, that's what you expect when you put these quotas. Person after person I talk to says, how am I supposed to meet 20 stops without doing this? It's not possible. And there's never any accommodations made. So it's disingenuous for them to come out and say, oh, we don't condone this, while at the same time they do absolutely nothing to try to address why it's happening.
Yeah, this quote from your article struck me. You spoke with a former driver who received a message from her manager that had a section titled urine bottles, and it states, in the morning you must check your van thoroughly for garbage and urine bottle. If you find urine bottles, please report to your leads, supporting staff, or me. I mean, like, check this off the list, check this other thing off the list, and of course, the perfunctory urine bottle in your car. Can you talk about your communications with this former driver and just how that bolstered a lot of what you reported on?
This was so sad. This driver, like others I interviewed, but who couldn't be named because this person had quit recently. I had female drivers telling me that they had gotten UTIs from having to do this so routinely. I can't stress enough how frequent this is not a marginal thing where, Amazon might say, oh, there are crazy things that happen at every company. We're a huge company of hundreds of thousands of people. Sure, you can find something. That's so misleading. This is solidly within the mainstream of how delivery associates, have to conduct themselves in order to get by. And there are health consequences from it. Hearing about these UTIs, hearing about being in physical pain from having to meet these sort of things. There's more than one person I talked to who said physically their body just couldn't take it anymore and they had to quit. And these are a lot of individuals with modest means that can't afford to be moving between jobs unless they absolutely have to. So in the case of this driver, what she told me on the record was pretty much consistent with what everyone was telling me, that I had to grant them anonymity because I don't want them to get fired because they're not authorized to talk to me. And that is that not only were these bruising quotas always unrealistic, but under coronavirus, it got significantly worse. And there were never any concessions made because suddenly Amazon becomes what should be the government, which is a sort of logistics center for providing goods and services to people that need them or not able to go out to restaurants or not able to go out to grocery stores and things like that. But again, there's no concessions. I'm not saying that you can't have 2-day delivery and things like that. They absolutely can. They would just need to hire more people. And yes, that would cut into profits. But I mean, the reality is they have to choose between human decency and profit. And the way that corporations are structured, they have no incentive to do anything other than choose profit as the priority every time. And so it was really harrowing to see someone, and respect to her for being willing to go on the record and say these things, because that's a big step to take. Future employers will see that kind of thing. And again, I had hoped to use her insights to show people, Like, this isn't just, internal documents or reports. Like, here's someone willing to go out and say it, put their name on it. And she did it because she was just so angry at how, I don't know, I try to, discuss this in a sort of dispassionate, fact-based way, but I don't know how to say that, like, you don't treat human beings like this. I don't know what else to say. And, that was the feeling I had the entire time researching the stories. Was just this pathos and just this like visceral reaction that anybody would do this to humans, much less a huge company that is a major employer in this country and that presumably other, companies are emulating.
Well, we've talked about on the show how a lot of mainstream journalism where they try to divorce any kind of empathy or, I guess, passion from their coverage, it results in like very horse racy, sociopathic in some ways coverage of politics. So I appreciate your compassion and your empathy in this situation. Let's move on to your next story, because a few days later, again, you published that first story on the 25th. Then the 29th, you were able to get your hands on an internal document related to those very corporate tweets that were the catalyst for your first story, which was the denial of the peeing in bottles story, the fact that you had so much evidence and people who spoke to you who confirmed it. And then your second story, entitled Document, Amazon's security staff reported its own hostile tweets as suspicious, fearing they'd been hacked. They were really fearful about their brand being, I guess, besmirched, but it seems to me they're doing that themselves. But can you talk about that story and what you found there?
Yeah, so the genesis of all of this, people are like, how do you get so many scoops? As much as I would love to take credit for all that and say, oh, I'm just such a great reporter, the reality is a lot of people were just enraged at what the company was doing. And the mood was one, so many people I talked to, these are not, left-wing radicals that want to, throw out management. A lot of them were just like, I saw the tweets and that's insane and they're lying and I want you to know about it. And that was, and so if you go back to the original tweet that started a lot of this, it was the Amazon PR account's response to Representative Mark Pocan, who's criticizing them for their working conditions, mentioning the peeing in bottles. They said, as you mentioned earlier, you don't really believe that, do you? People are real mad about that because, as I said before, this is a routine practice. It's not any sort of martial thing. There's no way management doesn't know about it. I mean, we know that they know about it because they've memorialized it in these internal documents and policies. But after that response, there were several other tweets where they replied to Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, pretty popular senators by the standards of Congress. And they were sort of taunting them. The tone is very interesting, where they're saying, you guys say you want $15 an hour. We actually give it to our employees, very conveniently leaving out the fact that they offered it to their employees after a whole lot of pressure from the Progressive Caucus on exactly that issue.
Bernie Sanders' Stop Bezos Act, they got so spooked by it that they put it into place because they were getting such bad PR from it.
Exactly. And now they're like, well, we actually did it. And you guys, and it's just so I mean, I cannot stress enough how angry people inside the company were. And that's why I started covering, because I don't cover labor stuff very often. I generally cover national security type stuff. I just saw an opportunity here because I know that when they go out and lie like that publicly, that is the perfect conditions for when people want to blow the whistle and talk. But all that being said, what was interesting about all that is that people inside the communications department, I wasn't just talking to people in the warehouses on the factory level. I was talking to people on the corporate side in the offices and people in the comms department and sort of adjacent kind of tangent to it. And they were all horrified at what's happening. And again, these are not left-wing zealots by any means. These included people that were solidly like kind of true believers, where they're like, yeah, we want to help the community by giving them goods and services and our 2-day delivery, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And they were shocked and terrified of what's happening. There were even just people that were saying the amount of time it's going to take to put out the fires and to try to regain trust that we've wiped out with these incendiary tweets to pretty popular political representatives is going to take probably months or years even. And so I'm talking to them, and then one of them says to me, these tweets were seen as so insane that an engine, I believe it was an Amazon engineer, reported it to Amazon info security as they thought that the account had been hacked. They were worried that the Amazon's Twitter account, they're like, this has to be hacked. This is so crazy. And then they get the report back. They're like, nope, wasn't hacked. This is someone in senior executive management. And my understanding is that this person is actually going around behind communications and not getting the not going through the usual process where they have to get sign off and things to pretty much prevent exactly these kinds of scandals from happening. And I don't know if this is accurate, but Vox has reported, I mean, I don't know this firsthand, but Vox has reported that this is Jeff Bezos himself just railroading this stuff through, and you know, to the displeasure of comms. But that's consistent with what I'm told, which is that there's someone very high up in the company that's mandating these things to happen, you know, much to the dissatisfaction of pretty much everyone else in the firm, it seems like.
Yeah, so I wanted to, you can't independently verify it, but Recode, which is a part of Vox Media, was reporting that this is coming directly from Bezos. So, you know, based on your understanding of Amazon and your past research, who would have the power to kind of circumvent the comms department in this particular way? This seems to be coming from, at the very least, a high-level executive. Like, is it just to bolster this and emphasize it, is it so unusual that that's what seems like a very likely scenario?
No, it's perfectly plausible. And it's plausible that Bezos did. And my understanding is that it is someone very high up, because all the folks in comms were angry about it because, you know, someone's going around behind their back to do these kind of things. And, you know, we'll talk about this in a second, but in my third and most recent story about Amazon, the tone of these tweets, the kind of trolly, kind of provocative, sort of taunting demeanor, that was something mandated by senior leadership within the company, and they think it's a good idea. They think we're going out there and we're defending ourselves. And the Vox story says basically that, which is that Bezos was frustrated that we're not going out there and confronting these guys on their, what he considers their misinformation about the company and being more aggressive in these kind of things. And that's exactly what it looks like. I just don't know if it's him or if it's some other guy in senior leadership, because that's probably an attitude held by many that, you know, we got to go out there and you know, face these guys down. And then you talk to anyone in comms, they're like, no, that's not what you have to do. In fact, we should just ignore these things because there's no upside to it for us to respond to any of this stuff. But, you know, whatever the case may be, certainly plausible, and definitely someone in senior leadership from what I understand.
Yeah, it's the thinnest skinned people seem to be the most powerful people in the world in some instances. And it, like, yeah. But just to touch on Amazon practices before we move on to your final story, you talk about how within the company, these practices are really part and parcel of their efforts to stifle dissent. Can you talk about how they retaliated against their workers in Chicago and how that fits into the broader picture you're painting here?
Yeah, so during the coronavirus pandemic, there was a big push. And again, I can't stress enough how not political these types of folks are, judging from the conversations that I had with them. Not necessarily conservatives by any means, but, you know, it's not at the front of their minds. A lot of folks, they are trying to survive. They don't have a lot of time to think about this kind of political, you know, abstract stuff. So both corporate and in the warehouses, a lot of them were getting together and saying, okay, how can we continue to work as they want us to do, but do that in a safer way, so that we're not going to, you know, catch this horrible plague and get sick or, you know, die. And so at the corporate level, that took the form of, you know, people kind of getting together in these groups and saying, all right, well, let's present to management this plan, and here's a way we can do it where we can distance ourselves and maybe come to work, but you know, mitigate the kind of risk and try to do something consistent with what CDC is recommending, but that'll work for our workplace. And then in the case of Chicago, there was people actually trying to unionize, and the NLRB, the National Labor Review Board, actually found that there was retaliation, if I remember correctly, and that's not super common. You know, NLRB is not a super powerful organization, and to go up against Amazon like that, I would imagine that what they saw, the evidence that they saw, was pretty persuasive. But whatever the case may be, whether it's that or these groups on the corporate level getting together to try to form these message boards to discuss these things, my understanding is that those message boards were shut down. There were also put into place certain types of barriers that were said to protect them from COVID, but from people I talked to, they were concerned that they were trying to stop association from happening, people were interacting, especially in the context of the union vote. Whether that's what happened, I don't know the people that implemented that, so I can't say for certain, but there's a lot of suspicion on the part of workers about all of these different policies. For example, they took down an internal directory where you can just look people up and Not that it has a ton of personal information, but it might have their phone number and their email or something like that. And suddenly you can't find anyone else to interact with at your job because you don't know that stuff just from your day-to-day, work interactions. And the concern on the part of so many people I talk to is that there's, it's very interesting to them that this happened, coming up to these union votes, that sort of thing. And so from, a number of different angles, the impression was that there were attempts to atomize and keep people apart from each other with respect to the union stuff, but not necessarily taking up the CDC recommendations on the things you need to do to protect people from getting sick of COVID. And so that disjunct, that paradox, I think caused a lot of frustration and is what you're seeing really come to a head. There's this attitude that this stuff comes out of nowhere. That's never true. This thing was building up for the last year of people feeling as though they're not being listened to. And these were not marginal issues listened to on matters of how do I work so I don't get sick with this horrible disease, So that's sort of the context that what we saw over the last week or so is coming out of.
Well, I mean, I'll editorialize and say I have zero doubts that was an effort to stamp down any kind of, or tamp down, I should say, any unionization effort, just based on what we have seen in Bessemer as well. It was confirmed by, I believe, The Verge, or actually, I think I'm getting that wrong, but that Amazon changed traffic patterns. They changed the length of traffic lights so that union organizers outside of the facility couldn't stop and talk to Amazon workers in their cars in order to aid the fight for Bessemer union organizing. So it's so part of the playbook of what we've seen from Amazon. Then let's move on to your most recent story, which came out 2 days ago. Amazon's Twitter army was handpicked for great sense of humor, leaked documents reveal. So you find out that, or leaked document reveals. You've found out that basically Amazon had a Twitter bot army that they created under the title Veritas in 2018 as a top secret mission. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, so this is another matter that was marked Amazon Confidential, which is it's like this cosplay that they think they're in the CIA or something else. Feels like when you're a kid and you watch a Jason Bourne series and suddenly you're the CIA case officer and all these things. So that's kind of funny in itself. But they use cryptonyms, just like, again, I said before, I don't cover primarily labor stuff. I usually cover national security. And so to use these code words, it's kind of like, what, in a business context? Why are you doing that? And so their code name for this program, which people have been talking about earlier this week, is they saw this army of Twitter users that all have the same format for their Twitter account and their bios. They've got like a box. It's like it's supposed to be the delivery box that they do in the warehouses. And they just come out in mass and are saying, it's almost like North Korea. It's like, we love Jeff Bezos, drinks the sun and eats the moon or something. And he's, all this great stuff. So people were like, what the hell is that? And, it is very strange and dystopian. But I started looking at reporting. There's very little known about this program. So I started asking around. I mean, it's known that there are a bunch of these bots, they're not actually bots. They look like it, but these are actually human beings, real people that work for Amazon are paid to post these things. Yes, and so I started, right. So I started asking around, like, what is this program? And somebody says to me, he's like, they conceived of it in 2018. It was this big thing that everyone in comms thought was stupid. But I think I still have a report from it. Let me see. So then he sends me this report. I start clicking through it. And so these folks are handpicked to do these kind of sassy clapbacks at like detractors that are criticizing the company. And they're told to, quote, speak your truth. But apparently there are some guardrails. You can't speak your truth about just anything. You can't talk about unionization, for instance. They're explicitly told, don't reply to tweets about unionization. Examples given where, I'm paraphrasing, it's like if they hear someone say, let your employees unionize something, they're saying, don't respond to that. But to a lot of other stuff, not only do you respond, you want to be, quote, one of the words was, I can't remember what the word was again, but they're telling them you want to come on tough, you want to be bold, you want to be all these things that Vox reported that Bezos said they wanted to be. And so the idea is they're supposed to do these epic dunks. They're supposed to be windmill dunking on the critics. And this is supposed to be good for Amazon, which again, folks in comms thought this was idiotic and they thought this was a crazy idea. But not only do they, authorize these folks to do it, they provide them with training. I think it was like a 1 or 2 week training, and they're handpicking these individuals for what they think is this sort of sassy sense of humor that's going to, make Amazon seem likable. And what's interesting is the folks are picking for these. This was in response to, in part, the urinating in bottles allegations. They're instructed to tell people, well, I never saw that, which is interesting because it's like, It doesn't mean it doesn't happen because you're claiming that you didn't see it, but we'll set that aside for a second. Not only are they picking these folks to respond to those kind of things, there's a line in it where they say, you're going to want to, it might be a good idea to pick people that haven't been there very long because they tend to be more enthusiastic about the company. And you can kind of read between the lines about what that means, because maybe they haven't been there long enough to see people urinating bottles and these kind of things. Or, if you're a young kid and you have a new job, you're excited about it at first before you start to realize, how it really goes. And so, all this just goes to show the amount of thought and effort that was put into this thing. This was not an ad hoc decision. There's specific, they discussed doing these pilot studies, like psychological studies, to try to identify the right people to comprise this Twitter army that they now use. And the idea that they're giving you any sort of representative sample of the people that work in these fulfillment centers is ludicrous. These are very carefully chosen individuals to tell the part of the story that Amazon wants to tell, or else they would disclose all this stuff and it wouldn't be some secret program codenamed Veritas, which is funny in itself. But that's what we have with the Amazon Twitter army.
Can you talk about how your experience in covering national security overlaps with this? Because so much of this seems like it's like almost CIA propaganda. I touched on it a little bit, but just the scale and the scope of and the breadth of Amazon's influence and power, it's largely unrivaled, I would say.
Yeah, and when you talk to spooks in the FBI, I was talking to a friend of mine in the FBI maybe a year ago or so, and he was like palpably envious of the power that Amazon had. He said, "You guys think that we're tough cookie. Like, I wish we could do what Google and Amazon does." He says this sort of very cryptically, and I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "They have capabilities that we couldn't dream of." And the reality is they own so much of the tech and internet infrastructure that they probably can see a whole lot of what's going on. I know that in my law enforcement sources, a lot of what they're going off of, they're subpoenas. They're just subpoenaing these companies that are hoovering up massive amounts of data about all of us. And that's really where I think primarily the threat to privacy is coming from, not from the state, but from these companies that almost think of themselves as these sort of mini nation states in how not just they conduct themselves, but how they try to burrow like termites into the foundations of governments, not just domestically, but overseas. And talking to people, they were describing to me how they were trying to manipulate governments in Europe to try to establish a legal apparatus favorable to the types of products that they're selling and exporting, these kind of things. They really are operating as sort of mini states. And the country needs to have a serious discussion about antitrust law and how we start to implement that in a serious fashion, because the amount of power after coronavirus, look at the profits that guys like Bezos and these companies, they're just zooming. All these small businesses that died, they've been replaced with these companies. So they're even more powerful than they've been before, even after this catastrophe that so many people lost power and money in any sort of measurable sense. So that's really what all this illustrates, I think, is the awesome power that these almost robber baron type business institutions now have and are able to wield over our politics and the public.
Lastly, where do you think it goes from here? The Democratic Party's approach, and this is just really an editorial question for you, to tech companies like Amazon, because you have Joe Biden speaking out in favor of the unionization effort. And then at the same time, though, the reason that these companies have gotten so large is in part due to the fact that they donated so much money to the Democratic Party, and there's been that cozy relationship. Where do you see this going?
Well, there are two directions. Emma, when I was your age, we had a Democratic Party that, under George Bush, for instance, there really wasn't much in the way of a progressive caucus. I'm not saying that there weren't certain progressive tendencies within it, but they weren't organized, and it wasn't large enough to provide a sort of check against, the number of blue dog Democrats, it's the word they had then for these kind of centrist, kind of like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema kind of thing, was just overwhelming, and the power they wielded was overwhelming. There was never any question of, what is the conflict, who's going to win here, in the way that we're having with these kind of bills where, the 15 an hour failed, but there were other concessions. At least there's a kind of there's at least a sort of competition, a conflict, a debate around these sort of things now. And I think much the same case with Amazon and how we're going to prosecute. I mean, the Justice Department is in the middle of a huge, I can't remember, maybe it was the SEC. They're in the middle of a big investigation related to all this, because when you integrate, they have control of internet delivery, logistics, all these different things. I mean, it very clearly is monopoly, and there are all sorts of legal issues that come with that. So not only, is the situation right for facing something like that, but we are starting to have what looks like, particularly in the House, a not insignificant, wing of the party that has a different view than what perhaps the Chuck Schumers and Mansions and things of the past would have. So that's really up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen with that. There's at least a fighting chance now. But as you see with cases like this, and as you said, for Biden to come out and make that statement, there are detractors who say, it wasn't strong enough. Of course, I'm never going to be happy. I want him to be out there fighting for every strike at the tiniest company, but so I agree with you. Always push for more. That said, this was really extraordinary. I don't think we've seen anything like that certainly in my lifetime, for a president to come out and make a statement like that. And Amazon is terrified. I can tell you from the people inside that they are, this is a modern day pharaoh. He's the richest man on the planet. Company's worth over $1 trillion. So enormous power. But they wouldn't be as scared as they are if there wasn't a credible threat and if there wasn't some chance that this unionization push can work. And I think it can. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of this irrational behavior. I think it's driven by fear and anxiety over, oh God, what if it spreads? What if people start unionizing other places? What's going to happen? And that's really why I think we're seeing this crazy overreaction in the form of the tweets and the public statements and all that. So there's something's changing here.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Ken Klippenstein, reporter at The Intercept. Please check out his great work and all of his pieces, including these 3 ones on Amazon and all the scoops he got. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, Ken.
My pleasure. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. Let's talk a little bit about the Derek Chauvin trial, shall we? I'm sorry, I just had a technical difficulty. You can see me okay, Matt, right?
Yes, I can.
You can hear me? Okay, great.
Yep.
The trial of Derek Chauvin continues. He is the officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds until George Floyd died. And actually, he knelt on him after his pulse had already stopped for a few minutes. 61-year-old Charles McMillan, I'm sorry. He was a witness to the murder, and he spoke on the stand at the trial yesterday. It was quite emotional. Here's that clip.
Mr. McMillan, do you need a minute?
Oh my
Just take your time. Just know when you're ready.
I'll just give you a moment, Mr. McMillan. I'm not sure if there's water for you as well. Oh, if you need a break to get some water, let me know, and we can take a break. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
He says something at the end there. That's why I just wanted to play until the end, Matt. But I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, actually, maybe not in this clip. I apologize. So you get the picture about that trauma. So I wanted to play that because as this trial unfolds, I mean, this is going to be going down in the history books as one of the most important trials in the history of civil rights in this country. And I just thought that was such a deep display of trauma, internalized trauma from decades and decades of systemic racism, and then of course the trauma of seeing a man murdered right in front of you. And the trauma of the former, of systemic racism, is constantly rehashed in this trial, where Black witnesses are questioned specifically by the defense and essentially asked, for the most part, to prove racism exists to an audience that's probably already made up its mind that it doesn't. And I'm talking about the TV audience. I don't know what's going to happen with the jurors. But that conversation is such a microcosm of what we experience in America anyway, right? Where it's this gaslighting technique where white racists often, and in just a society that's built on so many pillars of white supremacy, is constantly asking Black America to display what racism is. And when they give concrete examples, they poke holes in it. And that's kind of what I see throughout this trial. And yet a man crying in that way, breaking down, and the quote that we didn't see there was that it really moved him when George Floyd was talking about his mother before he passed away, and how Charles McMillian talked about losing his own mother. You know, that's what I think is so, I guess, jarring and emotional about what we're seeing in this trial, is that it really is a visceral, emotional display of what it's like to be Black in America, and it's on people's television screens every day.
Yeah, let me just play this clip. Donta Williams, the second, who was the bystander, how they're trying to use that emotion against the witnesses here.
Yes.
You called him a tough guy.
I did.
You called him a real man.
I did.
You called him such a man.
I did.
You called him bogus.
I did.
You called him a bum at least 13 times.
That's what you counted in the video?
That's what I counted.
And that's what you got, 13.
And that was early on, right? Those terms grew more and more angry. Would you agree with that?
They grew more and more pleading for life.
All right. After you called him a bum 13 times, you called him a bum.
That's what you heard?
Did you say that?
Is that what you heard?
I'm asking you, sir.
I'm pretty
did
sure
you
I
say
did.
that?
You heard that. I'm pretty sure you did.
You call him a...
If that's what you heard, I'm sure that's what
I'm asking you, did you say that?
If that's what the video recorded, so I did.
You called him a bitch.
If that's the video you heard from the video,
it's a yes or no, sir.
If that's what was heard in the video, yes, I did.
And at one point, you said that Officer Tao pushed you.
That's correct. He didn't. He put his hand in my chest, is what I said.
And you observed Officer Tao push someone else, right? Or feel like he pushed someone else?
I didn't let him touch anyone else.
Do you recall saying, "I dare you to touch me like that. I swear I'll slap the of both of you"?
Yeah, I did. I meant it.
Right. So again, sir, it's fair to say that you grew angrier and angrier.
No, I grew professional and professional, and I stayed in my body. You can't pay me out to be angry.
Here's another microcosm of an experience of being Black in America. The defense attorney is trying to paint him as an angry Black man. Did what, I'm sorry, what's the name of that? He's an MMA fighter.
Donta Williams the second, yeah.
Don Williams. Don Williams didn't assault the officer. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to cause the murder of George Floyd. But in order to stoke racist fears in the jurors, this is what is being done here. And I guess, win over racist America. It's to paint a bystander who was getting more and more upset by seeing a murder in front of him as an irrational, angry black man. And then the other side of the coin, Charles McMillian breaking down and being emotional about it, that'll be dismissed as, I don't know, whatever the next excuse will be. There's an opportunity to paint one witness as irrational and overly angry, and another opportunity to dismiss a witness as being over emotional and that his experience doesn't necessarily matter. That's what we're seeing in this trial. It's just infuriating. And yeah, I would love if he could have put, you can't do that when you're on the stand, but my question to this defense attorney would be like, how is this relevant in any way to the fact that George Floyd was murdered by this police officer? And what they're going to say is, and what the defense has already said their argument is going to be, is that the officer, Derek Chauvin, was so overwhelmed by the crowd's response, the growing crowd, as he was murdering somebody, that he couldn't help but do more murder. So he was way too inflamed with emotion because people were asking him to stop killing somebody. Kind of circular in my view. Matt, anything on that end? Or shall we head into the fun half?
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much said it. If Don Williams wanted to be angry and irrationally so and violent, he could have been. He has the tools to. He was instead trying to save a man's life. And the idea that you would go over that with a fine-tooth comb as if it bears anything other than, like, the only relevance it has to me is, what he must feel compared to, other witnesses who said they wish they had done more. I assume he probably has some of those regrets too. And like, that's awful.
And not a burden that any of the witnesses should have to bear, including the testimony we heard from an 18-year-old woman who was a 17-year-old girl at the time. Why does she have to bear guilt? Because an officer murdered a man in front of her. And again, Don Williams is black. I'm not sure about the race of the 18-year-old witness, but it's very clear that if you're a black person trying to intervene in this murder, that your life could be in danger too. And yet, these witnesses are asked to take on the emotional burden of feeling guilt, or at least that's what they feel, which is just an understandable human emotion when you see someone get murdered in front of you. That's so emblematic of the black experience. There's so many tropes and obvious, just awful historical elements in this trial, and the clips we showed were indicative of that. Now let's head into the fun half, because we have a Marjorie Taylor Greene clip that I'm so excited about.
Yeah, before that, I just want to say tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time.
I'm sorry, forget plugs.
Left Reckoning. Tonight, we have Brian Box Brown on to talk about pot legalization in different areas. A lot of things to watch out for and be aware of in terms of how states are doing this, things like not allowing home grow or, those sorts of things. Also, he seems kind of okay on the New York state legalization, which seems interesting. So he's still digesting that, but we'll talk about that tonight. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. But more importantly, go subscribe, YouTubers, go subscribe to Left Reckoning on YouTube now so you can watch us tonight.
Yes, definitely do that. Everyone subscribe to Left Reckoning. The No McKee Show will be on at 3 p.m. today. Not sure about her guests, but check it out. And in case you guys were wondering, yes, the intro this morning was a little bit different than one we'd heard before. We'll play it again for you, just in case it jogs your memory about what this is referencing.
The Majority Report. Everything shitty about liberals in one hunched over, lying, screaming, banal, trite human container. Like a one-stop shop museum for what is so repellent about liberal discourse. That's The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Just a bit of a Twitter reference. Look it up, guys. Apparently, Sam is the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Let us head into the fun half, Matt.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube. He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss. I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance. Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Matt, you have to send old Matt the Zoom link.
Guys. Forgot it's. For some reason, I was thinking it was Wednesday too.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey guys, we're a little bit short-handed this week. I'm going to call into the phones. We'll take a quick call. Okay. Let's take some calls as we let Matt into the Zoom.
Weird, Emma. Sam had that error last week about the account, so I have to monitor that.
Calling from a 770 number. Calling from a 770 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Emma, new Matt, old Matt, Kyle, and the whole MR crew out there. This is David calling from Atlanta. How are y'all doing?
Doing well. Thanks, David, for calling. What's up?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been enjoying the Majority Report all week. I think it's been going super well. I'm calling because I had a thought recently that I'd love to get y'all's opinion on. I appreciate y'all talking about Brazil. Mentioned it at the top of the show yesterday. And of course, staying on top of it, as Michael would have wanted. And I've been really, really discouraged at the silence of the Biden administration about Bolsonaro's handling of it. Absolutely nothing. And as much as I feel like I've heard Secretary Blinken, or I've seen a tweet from him on almost every issue in Latin America other than Brazil. I am getting a kind of unsettling feeling that they're remaining quiet or neutral because they're going to prefer Bolsonaro to Lula. Just because I feel like they think he'll be more favorable for U.S. penetration into Brazilian markets. I think it's really discouraging, but just wanted to know what y'all thought. And as another side note, Emma, all the call this week, I think the demand is clearly there. A little passion project on the side, maybe something sports-wise, sports talk. I heard the idea for the fantasy league is great, but let's hear a little Emma Sports Show. I think that'd be awesome.
Well,
I think that yeah.
So if I ever, do my own podcast or something, I'll do a half hour for sports at the end. Like I don't think I have the bandwidth to do a full sports show, because that's then that, takes a little bit of the joy out of it for me. But I do love talking sports. And I think your theory is very interesting, and I hadn't thought of it that way. We've talked about some pleasant surprises from the Biden administration. Foreign policy has not been one of them. It's been either non-existent quiet, like what you're talking about, which just is not a way to use the United States' influence for good, or it's been pretty much completely bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Haiti completely. The support behind Moise is atrocious and should be stopped. Also, they've taken a lot of umbrage at the detention of Inez in Bolivia, who people should just know that she released security forces from a liability so they could commit massacres after the coup last time, and America was silent about that coup. So they preferred fascists in Bolivia to Morales, and they'll prefer fascists in Brazil to Lula. Because that is, and I mean, foreign policy has been horrible, and Blinken is a freak, and these are bad people doing bad things, I think is the if you reduce it to that, I think that's probably a good guiding a good guidepost there.
Yeah, I heard that Blinken's father apparently was an aide or a close mentee of Robert Maxwell, which is not a great sign in my book. But if I could also just say quickly, not just silence, you look at Biden's rhetoric as far as don't come here, telling people very clearly. And then the U.S. Embassy in Haiti, their official Twitter account, tweeting that out to people in Creole, instead of actively giving people a case for saying, we are going to now actively try to make your countries better, actually try to help make your lives more livable down there, just telling them, no, stay in your despair, that we have created. It's deplorable, but
I mean stop supporting Moise and maybe people will stay there.
Yeah, I mean it's 1980s shadow of Reagan-esque foreign policy. That's really what it seems like at this point.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
but thank y'all so much. Loved it this week, and y'all take it easy. Left is best.
Left is best. Thanks so much, David. Have a good one.
Have you guys heard Blinken's song, Lip Service?
I have not, but welcome to Old Matt, by the way.
Hey, old Matt, enjoy this song with us.
I took a look around, nothing to see, but then I finally found somebody like me. I wanted to tell ya, but I was so afraid, You said you liked me fine, but not in that way. Oh, was it such a crime to want you to stay? And then I came on to you, but you said let's just be friends, You're paying.
I can't.
We're gonna get the chorus.
Terrible.
Lip service tonight.
Lip service. Okay.
Lip service. There we go. Incredible. No.
The vocals are just horrible. Horrible vocals.
It's kind of Springsteen-esque, and I'm questioning the choice of overpowering maracas for the percussion.
All right. Well, guys, I would like to say thank you for letting me join the show. I got worried I was canceled for a minute. I thought I did something.
Matt, it's just me and Matt this week. We're juggling a bunch of things. We did not. So
I didn't know.
Yeah, Brendan isn't here, so really don't take it personally. We're sorry we didn't send the link, but
I won't. I'm sort of disappointed Sam's not here today because I have a big announcement that I wanted him here for, which was that today, to the day, 10 years ago today, was my first day ever working at the Majority Report.
Wow.
A decade ago. A decade ago.
You started on April 1st?
April 1st, 2011. And if you ever want to know how successful all of you guys' career will be, here I am 10 years later on the same show. Yes.
Well, we love to have you, and it's good to have you today, especially because we have a wonderful Marjorie Taylor Greene video to play. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, she got kicked off of all of her committees for being a QAnon conspiracy theorist, for essentially encouraging the Capitol riots and the threats towards her colleagues, literal physical threats. So she's really making an effort to be more bipartisan, showing that she can dislocate both her right and her left shoulders all at once. Let's take a watch at her CrossFit workout. Okay, so these leaps.
Oh no!
Stop! You're back! You're back! Stop! Jesus! Jesus Christ! You're back!
Flopping like a fish out of water, you know?
So I've been doing some research on this. Apparently this is how CrossFit just is. Her form actually isn't that bad per CrossFit. And Emma, you'll know. Let me see if I can find that. Where did you share that with us? Tim Pool has gotten on you.
Mad because I said it was bad form. Now, apparently it's not bad CrossFit form. But I will tell you, people, it's still fucking bad form. You can't flop around like you're a fish or you're like me at age 5 on the monkey bars. I often do a quick Google search before claiming to know something in which I have no experience. This is wonderful. Apparently, Emma was mocking Marjorie Taylor Greene and many people were pointing out that MTG is actually doing fine by CrossFit standards.
Yeah, by CrossFit standards being the key clause in that sentence.
What's the equivalent of doing well by CrossFit standards? You know, I'm doing well hosting the show by Tim Pool standards. Does that kind of clear me to I get an A+?
I think it's when you, I should add, allegedly hook up with your trainer, right? That's probably good by CrossFit standards, right?
I guess so. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene also passed that standard with flying colors.
Right.
I mean, look at the bounce in the ligaments here. This just can't be good for you.
Bad for your shoulders and bad for your back. Okay, again, whatever. This is like some sort of CrossFit shoulder raised deadlift kind of deal. I don't even know what you call this. But then I don't know why she has to hop and then drop it. Like, I hope she doesn't live in an apartment. This is what she humping the air? Why are her legs? Forward.
Apparently that's what's known as a butterfly pull-up. And to me, it looks like, you know, somebody who can't do a whole lot of the normal type pull-ups doing a different, less disciplined method so they can get a few more in. But apparently this is a method. I don't know why they're called butterfly pull-ups because I've never seen any butterfly in my life look like that.
I don't know. I sort of get it. Doesn't it look as regal and majestic as a butterfly?
I was like a larva, right? Squirming around.
Yeah, it's like a caterpillar falling out of a tree.
Tim Pool, I'm really sorry that I didn't do enough CrossFit research before commenting on Marjorie Taylor Greene's workout habits, but I have 2 eyes and I can tell you that is I don't even know what muscles that works. It's just like basically a swinging back and forth. She's trying to be a trapeze artist, but also the leg movements don't necessarily. I need to see it one more time. I need to see it one more time.
You're enjoying this one a lot, aren't you, Emma?
Because it took me by such surprise. Okay, I'm like, whatever. I don't really, drop it. Okay, it gets so much more intense here. That's just designed to fuck up your shoulder ligaments. There's just no way. There is no way. There is no way. All right.
I mean, I don't see how it does anything for you. It's just like to be able to do it without actually pulling yourself up. Like, I don't see how that's strengthening your arms. It's just like, yeah, you're just using the momentum to quickly get your chin above the pole and then just drop back down. I mean,
somebody must have busted their chin like that too.
100%. It's just like it doesn't seem like you're building muscle because you should be doing it in a more deliberate manner. You're using your momentum to just basically pull your arms out of your sockets and then just make sure that your lower back is fucked for the rest of your life. So, by the way, this was her way of saying this is how she's fighting COVID. If you want to fight COVID by ruining your arms and your back, please have at it.
There's that thing too. I mean, there's been legitimate like health and wellness people, legitimate bodybuilders, strong men who've come out and have told their stories about getting COVID, even though they're at like peak performance. And I don't know, whatever that entails, but they're like really in shape people. And then they show pictures of themselves before and after getting it, and they like lose their muscle mass. They're like completely have to rebuild everything that they've, built up over the years and exercising and having a health regimen. So really, COVID will get you no matter what. It doesn't matter if you've got if you're able to to quickly get your chin above a pole before flopping back down to the floor.
Yeah. I'm just, it doesn't shock me that she's a member of the CrossFit cult, right? As she's a part of a member of the QAnon cult, she seems to kind of have a propensity to join things that don't make sense. Married to Mothra says the people that do butterfly pull-ups do every other pull-up. It's about engaging other muscles, kind of like a UFC fighter trying to armor himself out. He's trash. Do every other pull-up. I don't really get it, but anyway, yeah, that doesn't look good. Rob from Dedham says, say goodbye to the Majority Report CrossFit community. In all seriousness, though, MTG meant she was literally fighting COVID. The room had COVID, and then ran once and saw her.
The room had.
Anyway, all right. Should we take a call or two?
Sure.
I'm in Sam's seat, so you don't mind that I have the calls open here, Matt?
It's all good. I saw that you took the call before I got on, so I was like, just damn all around. Oh, won't let me on the show, taking the calls from me. I just, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say. Calling from an 814 number. Calling from an 814 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Calling from an 814 number. Going once, going twice. Sent into the depths. Calling from an 847 number, calling for an 847 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello? Is this something on my end?
I have no idea. I'm not in charge of the calls today.
Oh, come on. All right, we'll try. I feel badly. Hopefully, I mean, it seems like I'm in, right? I mean,
let me check on my end here. Yeah, I see you in your thing is there in the live, so you should be accepting calls and being able to take them.
Yeah. So, all right, calling from a 518 number.
Hey, is this me?
Thank God.
There we go.
Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey guys, this is Luke. I'm calling from Oneonta in upstate New York.
Luke from Oneonta. What you calling about today?
Well, I don't know how it's looking down there. Up here, it's awfully snowy, and after about a week of 70 degrees, it's got me thinking about, the horrors of climate change. And I know you folks have talked a lot about it, and I have a lot of respect for all of you, so thank you for everything that you do. But, I was talking to my dad, who's a major Trumper, about climate change, and it really seems, unfortunately, and I really hate to do this because of how, important climate is in the whole global sense, but it really seems to kind of start to click a little bit more with folks that are either conservative or Trumpian, wherever you want to draw the line, and when you start talking about dollars and cents and how it'll impact them directly. And I was just curious about what you folks think the most powerful kind of argument to try to get folks over to acknowledging the depth of climate change without trying to necessarily scare or horrify them, although it is scary and horrifying. Just to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Matt, you want to, for me, I immediately thought of what gets like California, rich people concerned about climate change is when you talk about the coastline, but that it's just so specifically targeted for for other people. Matt, what do you think about this?
I I agree with you. It seems to be that way, doesn't it? I don't know what else I can add, honestly.
So you're from Oneonta. I think you make it regional, right? And I think you talk about how, increased storms, increased cold, increased weather velocity, things that affect people on a personal level and make it personal to them. I think that can bolster an argument. But, what's so frustrating about the climate change debate is that, yes, it's accelerating, but it doesn't happen in terms of one event, like, say, 9/11, that's right in front of your face. It's so kind of just subtle in that way. So I think when you can point to and string together a few catastrophic events and talk about how they're just going to increase in velocity, and then also tie it back to what your father and other people like him are experiencing in their community, then you can make a strong case.
All right. And I know this doesn't exactly address the caller, but I feel like the climate change deniers are really more so than ever in the minority. We're dealing with something that I think the majority of people in this country are now really coming to terms with. Again, is it enough for them to make any sort of big changes? I don't know, but it's not really down to the individual. The reasons we're going through this all is because of the choices made by our politicians and a few major corporations. So, it doesn't really, honestly, not to say that other people don't matter, but, someone like the caller's family members or whoever, I don't think they really factor into the debate at this point. I think enough people realize that this is an issue. The problem is that those few people who don't care are the ones in power.
Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the truth is, if you have just, family members who have no actual power, but they're bought into the propaganda against climate change, they're not, like Bender said, they're not the game. They're just an echo of the real problem, which is the people in power who are telling them that it's not a problem because it's useful for them. People believe.
If this was 10 years ago, I would be worried if there was, I'd say, we need to get more people to care about this issue. And that way it'll show the people in charge that this is something that people want something done about. But I think we're there at this point. I really do think that's no longer a problem. We have the numbers. The problem is that the almighty dollar is keeping those powerful people in politics and in corporations from doing anything about it.
Yeah, agreed. And we have an IMer who kind of added to this. Increased flooding, disease-bearing insects affecting both people and pets, and crop failures have been solid points for me to bring up over in Minnesota, says the Tim Caucus. So that's a way to personalize it there.
Yeah, I can just speak about North Dakota. The climate is drastically different than it was when my parents were growing up. Way longer drought periods, but also sometimes way wetter periods. There's a noticeable change, and most significantly, and this is probably true in a lot of areas, but in the Red River Valley and the Missouri, flooding happens. Like you get a 100-year flood every decade now.
I'm going to read some of these IMs about CrossFit, and then we'll take another call because it's making me laugh. C4N says they're called kipping pull-ups designed for max reps. CrossFitters are heavily influenced by training to failure training practices, and their lives revolve around high numbers. Kipping pull-ups get you high numbers but destroy your rotator cuffs. The press she was doing before is designed to get high rep numbers as well. Yeah, so it's just like it's aesthetic, and they don't really, it's not about results.
Gamifying your workout routine.
Yeah. Illuminati Kid says, sound like you've discounted the possibility she's moving around so strangely because she's trying to dodge the literal COVID particles in the air. Sam from Ottawa says, CrossFit is, as described by my coworker, who is a registered former trainer, in air quotes, full body cardio and a place to find extramarital affairs. Well, she has done both of those beautifully. So here's a question for you, Matt. Old Matt. I have a question for old timer Matt because of his Gamergate expertise. Do you think that AOC has become like Anita Sarkeesian, like a figure that people will constantly attack and bully to gain their following? Said Head Larry.
That's a really good point. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, there is some sort of anti-establishment. I don't want to call them left. I'll steal Michael Brooks's phrasing, the dumb left. Who is really building their numbers on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook using AOC as the big baddie. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think that's a perfect analogy. She has become a figure which gets them views, and they are going full board now with attacking her and saying that everything that's wrong with the left and politics lies with her, and it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, there are things to critique her about, but even then, though, like the criticisms of AOC, I feel like she responds to all of them. And I mean, again, you can agree with them or not, but I think most of what she believes when it comes to the things you disagree with are just difference in strategy, not really a difference in an actual system of belief. Like she very likely wants most of the things you do. I do believe she's working for them, and she just has a different idea of how to get there. It's not like you got to force her to believe in a $15 minimum wage, that wars are bad, that Medicare for all should be the healthcare system in this country. I mean, but yeah, that's a really great analogy there. I think that's right.
I don't know the analogy, but just based on how it was set up, it sounds right.
Yeah, basically, Anita Sarkeesian was a video creator in like the early to mid 2010s who started a series about tropes in video games, and it focused on like a feminist critique of video games. And she got a lot of attention for her video pieces, and she raised a lot of money on Kickstarter to create more, and she became like public enemy #1 for the Gamergate types. Even before Gamergate officially kicked off, she received tons of hate from people who were able to then build their own sort of fame from their attacks of her, I should say.
Sounds on point. We'll just read a few more M's and then we'll take a call and then do some clips. Sorry. I lost the one I wanted to read. Married to Mothra clarified, MTG sucks is what I meant. That is not what butterfly pull-ups look like. What I meant is a lot of CrossFit is directly targeting and expanding muscles with exercises, just like hockey players are squat kings and queens. Anyway, all right. Enough about Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though I could talk about this forever. Let's take another call. I'm going to select.
I think I'd watch you dunking on Marjorie Taylor Greene's form for I think I could do it for the rest of the show. Honestly, I'm enjoying this immensely.
Yeah. Calling from a 405 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Max from Oklahoma.
Max from Oklahoma. How are you?
I'm doing well. I am taking a break from canvassing for a city council race. I spoke to Matt over Twitter a couple days ago to tell him about a city council race out here that got very hairy for a lot of the canvassers.
Do tell.
Yeah, so there's a group that, it's just a reactionary group that sprung up after George Floyd and Norman, which is mostly a college town here, but it's the third largest city in the state. One of the city council members wanted to redirect funding from the police, and obviously a lot of people freaked out. And the group that sprung out of this is called Unite Norman. And I have organized in Texas, California, Pennsylvania, all over. And I mostly do rural organizing. And I have never faced any sort of hostility like this. It was pretty wild. So I'll mention one of my colleagues, the first day that they were out there, got their box of lit confiscated by a local deputy who identified himself as a member of Unite Norman. And then that same day for me, I was getting followed by a deputy who I'm pretty sure was just taking down the door hangers as I put them up. But he did that for about an hour and a half and then kind of tailed off. And then I had a very intense experience where I was getting followed by these two trucks. They're the trucks with the lift kits. They're covered in Trump and Unite Norman bumper stickers. They followed me for a while and boxed me into a driveway that I pulled into to hang up some door lit. But before I got out of the car, I was very nervous. These were some very threatening guys. And, this is Oklahoma. I don't know what they were thinking. I canvassed with a 45, and that is the only time in my life that I've had it out, and I thought I might have to use it. But I also deliver for DoorDash. I put the heat bag out the window, waved it. I guess they assumed they got the wrong car and just kept going. But that really stuck with me. I have not... it's Oklahoma. Plenty of conservatives will say, I'll shoot you if you don't get off my yard when you're canvassing. Very few of them really pursue you and have that level of threat. And it wasn't just me. My entire team was reporting this. And the next day I switched out cars with my girlfriend. And even then, as I was, stopping at doors in mostly pretty rural parts of the city, 20 minutes outside of the city is pretty much just field, open land. And even then, I would get stopped as I was coming back to my car after dropping something off, and I'd get interrogated by people asking what I'm doing there. And every time they drive away, the back of the car would have that Unite Norman bumper sticker. And it has gotten very intense in this city for really any political race that's out there. But I mostly operate out of Oklahoma City, and I'm planning on moving to Norman next year for law school. And that experience has really stuck with me, because even though the candidate we were canvassing against did not advance to the runoff, the conservative candidate who did advance has now been endorsed by Unite Norman and is very proud of that. But I don't really know what my options are if I wanted to continue organizing in that area where police are openly identifying with this group, confiscating lit, and there's not really an authority that I could turn to at that point. But yeah, I don't really know if it's as much of a question, but just to fill you in on what's going on in parts of the country.
I looked up I looked up, Unite Norman and stuff. A bipartisan group seeking to return Norman to the people while identifying qualified candidates to run for office. We'll put Norman first. Whenever something is that vague in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, it's probably nefarious.
Yeah, well, while you're looking it up, one of the top stories up there should be the co-founder throwing a brick at some teenager's car because he was playing obscene music.
Wow. Oh, yeah, I see it right now.
One bit of advice is just have a camera ready in case situations like that occur, I guess, is probably the only thing you really can do, yeah.
Oh, yeah. By day two, my team has a lot of experienced organizers. By day two, we were all sharing locations. Any sign of cops, we'd switch cars for the different areas to try to keep it off. And we were only there for about a week, but it really became a full-on operation.
Right.
Who is the candidate that Unite Norman is trying to dissuade people from supporting?
So it's an interesting one. I actually got hired by a group just to campaign against Sam Talley, who was the Unite Norman out there. But as it went on, the other candidate, Kelly Lynn, got endorsed by them later on. But Ward 5 in Norman, that's the funny thing. I really operate out of Oklahoma City. I was just out there canvassing against the candidates who were supported by Unite Norman, not in support of anyone else, just with these with these door hangers that said, this guy is a member of Unite Norman. This is what the group has done. And that alone was enough to really get that response. It's not like I was out there promoting the candidates that are trying to do some of the more progressive things, even though I would have been happy to do that. But the lift that I had was just anti-Sam Talley, not anything for his opponent, not anything against Unite Norman as a group. It was specifically Sam Talley's well, I guess it was against Unite Norman as a group, but
right. But I mean, that's I just wanted to basically get it out there. These are the people that anyone in Oklahoma or around this area, if you live in Norman or around, like Max does, these are the people you don't vote for. I'm sure there are some listeners who are familiar with the area, so I would want to get that out there. And I also wonder how often the sort of thing you just told us about actually happens all over this country for local races. Like we're so involved in talking about, obviously, because national level, that's how people take these things in. But even on state level, usually it's, governor races and things like that. But when we were talking about city council, I wonder how often there are these local right-wing groups who basically terrorize people for just trying to get their candidate elected or trying to get a candidate they don't like to lose. I mean, I'm glad you're telling us this, and I encourage anyone else who comes across this stuff in their own canvassing or activism, or even just walking around and seeing it or being a victim of it yourself. Let us know about it. This stuff deserves to be put out there, and anyone who is involved in trying to dissuade people from getting involved in politics should be shamed, honestly.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you having me on and saying that. And just one last thing, as a progressive and an organizer in a very red state, I'm sure you hear this from a lot of people in similar situations to me. It is so incredibly frustrating to see coastal liberals, blue state liberals, just saying like, well, if you don't want this thing to happen, just volunteer, participate, and like not understanding a lot of the barriers and the very real threats. I mean, there are canvassers who are young or, canvassers of colors that I won't send to a neighborhood because I know that it will be much more difficult and a threat for them.
Yeah.
And what these states need, Oklahoma used to be a pretty consistently Democratic state, and there are a lot of races that we can win here, like in Congressional District 5, where Kendra Horn very narrowly lost. And if we had more resources and support from out of state, we could make a lot of difference here. But it's not as simple as volunteer your time, vote for the right candidates to fix things out here. There are real barriers to making these changes.
Absolutely. Thanks so much
for calling.
Of course. Big fan. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Did you guys do clip 4, the Fox and Friends one already?
Have not. So why don't you go that? That's there you go.
All right. So Republicans and the conservative media too, obviously, as we'll get to in a second, are really defending this new law that passed in Georgia and was signed by the governor that basically bars a number of voting rights to people in the state. They're not very happy that Georgia turned blue, as evidenced by Trump calling the officials in Georgia constantly post-election in 2020, trying to get them to find a couple thousand votes to put him over the top. And then they're also not happy that they went from 2 U.S. senators who were Republicans in Georgia to 2 U.S. senators who are Democrats in Georgia. Democrats basically full on all around turned Georgia blue this past year. And they don't want that to happen anymore. So they basically are making it harder to vote in Georgia. And one of the things that they're doing is as part of the law is that it will be illegal. Well, it is illegal now due to this law for people to give those voters waiting in line to vote water. And here's Fox and Friends doing their darned hardest to try to defend that.
The water argument is what cracks me up, though, because what line have you ever stood in? If you go to Yankee Stadium and you stand in line to get a ticket, do they serve you water? Do you care?
Just hot towels. That's all I get.
I have been voting for over 40 years.
I've never had water.
And I have never thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go vote today. Will they have snacks?
Right, absolutely.
I'm not worried about
Exactly.
snacks.
I know.
No water.
Well, it's
Psycho.
like you don't live in Georgia in a predominantly black community that was targeted by these voter suppression laws. This is an easy.
Right. There's places where the line to vote is literally 6, 7, 8 hours sometimes. People do need a drink, but the thing is, I think we're even like not. I think we're getting too into this with them. Like we're falling into the trap. I think because that's not even analogous. I'm not even talking about the difference between voting and waiting for a hot dog in a Yankee Stadium line. I'm talking about the fact that the law doesn't it's not like getting water on a voter line was like mandatory in Georgia and they're barring it. No, like if someone at Yankee Stadium saw you waiting for a hot dog, they can still legally bring you the water while you're waiting in line if they wanted to. In Georgia, it is illegal for someone to decide to voluntarily bring a cup of water or a water bottle to an individual waiting in line. Like, it's not like they did away with the nationalization of the water delivery department who is forced to deliver water to people waiting in line in Georgia. Like, it just doesn't even make sense, that analogy.
Well, of course it doesn't make sense. They just want to obfuscate and make it and belittle what the experience is. What the experience is for black voters in Georgia is they often have to wait in line for 4 to 5 hours or multiple hours at least because they are targeted by the Republican governor and the legislature there that shuts down polling locations so that it's incredibly busy in their specific area. The reason volunteers hand out snacks and water is because it's so arduous to vote and they want them to have some comfort while they're standing there and not give up and go somewhere else, which is why this part of the legislation is designed to make it more uncomfortable for black people to vote in those areas. And so maybe they will be like, oh, I'm so thirsty and hungry, I've got to leave. That's the whole reason.
Well, I mean, let me just play this little clip from a Vox thing. I mean, the reality of these lines, it's getting
When
worse.
Joseph Johnson went to vote in his first presidential election, this isn't what he expected.
The line went this way in front of our auditorium and then snaked around into our library.
The last person at his polling location didn't get to vote until 1 a.m.
It was the longest line that I've ever waited in my entire life.
Like I've never got into a Yankees game at 1 a.m. finally, right? Like you actually move through those lines.
Yeah.
Where was that individual from voting?
It looks like it was at a university in Georgia.
Georgia? Okay. When does Georgia close their polling?
Is that correct, Matt? I didn't.
That was Texas, I think.
Oh,
Texas. All right. When does Texas close their? Because I want to give people a full-on example of the minimum amount of time that last person he mentioned was waiting. Because if you voted at 1 a.m., that's well after the polls close. But to vote at 1 a.m., you need to have been waiting in line by the time the polls close. So we would then know like the minimum amount of time this person waited. Let's say like 9 p.m. I'm assuming that's probably the latest most polling places stay open, right?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. for Texas. So it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. So we're talking a minimum of 6 hours if this guy literally got on the line in the nick of time at 7 p.m. on the dot.
Yeah. Tell us that isn't designed to specifically dissuade a certain kind of voter and that was at a university, Matt? Also young.
Yeah, and of course, if I was a university student, I definitely would go do something else probably. Like, unless you're a very politicized person, you're not going to wait 5 hours to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
And you will never see Ducey or Ainsley or Kilmeade ever have to vote under those conditions.
Well, they live in New York, so they can vote by mail, and then the Georgia law targets mail-in voting as well. So,
right.
Then,
But speaking of this new law in Georgia that Fox and Friends is trying to promote, luckily we all know that they're not the smartest. Kilmeade, come on, whatever her name is, yeah, right. But luckily we have the conservative intellectual Ben Shapiro around, who will bring us a much smarter, completely different, well thought out take of the conservative ideology and how they should actually really look at this new law in Georgia, which I'm going to assume puts the Fox and Friends argument to shame. Let's hear from conservative intellectual Ben Shapiro.
Jim Crow explicitly created a separate system of law for Black Americans and treated them as inferior. There's nothing in the law like that. That's not only an overstatement, it's just an outright lie.
The difference being it's not explicit. So,
right.
Well done.
Okay, hold on, pause it for a second, because one of the parts of Jim Crow was poll taxes. That's the same dynamic that we're talking about here. It didn't explicitly say with poll taxes, target or the quizzing that they would do in order for you to be able to vote, like, can you name all of the judges in this state, etc. They did that and only applied it to Black people, and this is the same thing that we're seeing in Georgia and in other states. So right off the bat, it's an ahistorical premise that he's setting up.
Right.
Jim Crow explicitly created a separate system of law for Black Americans and treated them as inferior. There's nothing in the law like that. That's not only an overstatement, it's just an outright lie. But, says Jamel Hill, all of corporate America should resonate to the lie. The law imposes new voter identification requirements for absentee ballots. Well, clearly that's racist. I mean, you mean you have to show that you are who you say you are when you vote absentee? If you can explain to me how that's racist, I'm willing to hear it. Anyone? Bueller?
I mean, if someone was actually in the room, such as myself or Matt Leck or Emma, if he was actually talking to someone, they would have been able to answer that. It is racist because it's a lot harder for certain minority groups to access these sort of governmental forms of ID. I mean, you're
from urban areas and you don't necessarily drive or need a license. Exactly. So, you may not have photo ID in the same way that rural white voters have it, for example.
Right.
It limits the use of ballot drop boxes. Oh, you mean like ballot drop boxes where people could just stuff the ballot box or take ballots out of the ballot box?
That doesn't happen. And why this hurts lower income areas is because they can take ballot drop boxes out of cities and areas where there are more Black people, and also because it also hurts disabled people who may not be able to actually go to the ballot box. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a point by point thing because this is the only language that speaks to Ben Shapiro. Not that he would ever watch this or but let him continue.
It hands state officials more power over local elections. Even before the legislation passed, many voters of color in Georgia faced hours-long queues at the polls. By the way, voter suppression doesn't involve long lines. Any more than long lines at Disneyland are ride suppression.
Pause.
Oh, there we go. There's the Fox and Friends argument.
I didn't realize that in our Constitution it says you have the right to ride on Magic Kingdom. I was unaware, or Magic Mountain, or whatever the hell. I was unaware.
Space Mountain.
Well, I gotta say, we don't actually have the full right to vote in Shrine either. I mean, it should be, but
okay.
But I think the bigger hole in his argument there is that Disney actually allows you to sign up for a plan that gives you a fast pass and skip the line and go right up to the ride. So I mean,
that's what I remember. about Disney is waiting for the mission to Mars and seeing all these a-holes cut the line because they paid an extra like $25 or something for it.
No, but here's the thing though. Yeah, it costs more, but here's the thing. It's not like you just get to go up and go on the ride whenever. You go up to the Fast Pass machine when you pay for this plan, and you basically see an assortment of different times where you could come back and go on the ride immediately. So is Ben saying that we should have a system where you get to like schedule when you go in to vote and you just get to vote right away? I mean, I don't know if that's such a out there plan. Actually, if Ben wants people to, it sounds like it'd be even easier to vote if you could just schedule when you vote and go.
He's in favor of the Fast Pass thing, but he just doesn't want to say out loud that white people can only purchase the Fast Pass. If we want to take that analogy further.
And I'm pretty sure you can also schedule that on your phone. So like, that'd be great to be able to like, just go and like, you open up the government voting app, like the Fast Pass Disney app, and you book your time to go and vote, and you just go right in. Takes 1, 2, 3, no line, no fuss. I'd be down with that. Is that what Ben is advocating for? Tell us, Shapiro, tell us.
I mean, and the idea that long lines don't suppress people's desire to ride rides is contrary to any experience I have ever had at any kind of amusement park. Because if there are no lines that day, let's say it's like a weekday and there's not a weekend crowd, that's much better. And I am much more likely to go ride a lot more rides.
Wait, hold on. I haven't been to Disney in a long time, or I'm confusing it with a theme park that does require you to pay extra for the Fast Pass type of service. But I looked it up. Disney Fast Pass is included in theme park admission. It does not cost you anything extra. So we can't even use the example of like, we don't want to advocate for people having to pay money to be able to do this voting wise, right? No, Ben's analogy works even more perfectly. For no cost, just you being an American voting age eligible citizen, you should be able to log on to an internet system, book your voting time, and go right in and vote whenever you'd please at that time. That would be fantastic. Thank you, Ben. I think we should start writing to our officials and see if this plan makes any sense.
Well, he is the intellectual conservative, and he sparked just a beautiful idea. And yes, I mean, Matt, like, how many times, both of you, I've been to a theme park, a few times in my life. I've literally said, I don't want to stand in that line. Let's do another one. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like the number one thing I remember saying in theme parks.
Yeah, and like, what's one reason you might not be likely to even go to the theme park at all is like, oh, it's probably gonna be really busy today. Let's do something else. Let's finish this clip though.
Voter suppression doesn't involve long lines any more than long lines at Disneyland are ride suppression. You know what voter suppression is? Voter suppression is where you don't get to vote.
That's what happened.
Functionally the same thing.
Giving food and water to people in line to vote. That's not even true. It bans giving any gift to people in line when they are within 150 feet of the polling place. You can bring water with you. There are people outside who can give you water. This is just not true.
No, the water's considered a gift if someone's giving it to you. What is he talking about? I mean, yeah, if you bring water, you're in the clear, but how many people are going to bring their own water to go vote?
Yeah.
I mean,
the idea that
how long they're going to wait until they get there.
The idea that the party, like the Democrats, are making people wait in line so they can bribe them with gifts.
With water. And water of all things, right?
Is just fucking ludicrous. It's unbelievably stupid.
I got like
I don't even like it reminds me of the 30 Rock joke where her like Liz's loser ex-boyfriend is like, well, I'm starting a coffee business. The one thing about coffee, where do you get it? Well, like, that's the problem. I'm stepping on it, but whatever. Yeah, you can get water anywhere. You don't need to stand in a line to get it.
Listen, if literally every voter in this country was Adam Sandler in the movie Waterboy, then I can see people going out in droves, waiting hours on voting lines just to get their deliciously refreshing cup of H2O. But I don't think we have a country full of Adam Sandler's character in Waterboy.
I mean,
that movie in a while.
The Democrats, we can get a hostile audience, or what's it called when you get the audience trapped? We'll trap the audience. They'll have to hear our pitches to vote. What was that, Emma? Captive audience, yeah.
I'm actually picturing Republicans hearing Adam Sandler's character in Waterboy going out to vote, and they're standing in line going, "Get ready to get him to leave."
If you're being made to vote, you're not being gifted shit. Like, water is making up for. Like, you should be getting paid for your time, frankly, for doing your civic duty. Like you should be gifted. Taking, honestly, 6 hours. You should be getting the minimum wage for that shit. Waiting 5 hours to vote.
The Democrats are bribing voters with "I voted" stickers. So,
right. I do like those stickers though, and I actually get a little bit upset when they don't give me one. I gotta let them know. Excuse me, where's my sticker? What's going on?
I didn't get one last time either, but I was okay with it. I got a pen, but then like people didn't believe that I voted as much because I didn't have the sticker.
Right. Yeah. You don't. I don't think your vote counts unless you get the sticker. Actually, I think that's one of the ways they get you.
I think I saw that on Crowders.
Calling from a 610 number.
Hello.
Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Justin from PA's Knife. How's everybody doing today?
Justin from
doing great.
PA's Knife?
Yes, PA's Knife. Yeah, I just moved here 2 years ago and that sort of stuff. And I've actually been looking at what's been going on, and I've taken my ideas from people who are doing things wrong, like Loeffler and Perdue. And because of that, I believe more than anything that everybody, the representatives, the senators, and the executive all deserve to be held accountable under the Emoluments Clause. No doubt about it whatsoever. Because,
you're talking about the stock issue, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the stock issue. I'm talking about the values. I'm talking about what's his name? Who owns a business and basically voted against the $15 minimum wage and that sort of stuff. He shouldn't be held. He should be held accountable and not be allowed to own a business so he can vote his own employees a lesser wage.
Right.
Everything. And I mean, and honestly, due to the fact that I see people like Boebert and MTG and that sort of stuff, these people don't deserve $100,000 to be pushed up out of the class that they're in, and that sort of stuff. They deserve a living wage of $50,000. $25 an hour is more reasonable than anything, and things like that should be held into account. We should have people running on these platforms. I would obviously love to, but I mean, I don't know what's going on around here. I've got to fight Dan Muser, who's a pain in the butt.
Right.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. It's like unfortunately these people were elected, but they are nut jobs, and Loeffler and Perdue obviously profited off of their time in office.
Well, honestly, the one major reason that most of these people are actually doing these jobs are to get the high incomes and that sort of stuff. If they were paid just
of course. No, I mean, that's the most obvious, especially for Republicans. I mean, obviously there are Democrats too, but I do feel like there are at least some Democrats who aspire to office to actually help people. Whereas for Republicans, I mean, what help do they want to bring people? The help of removing their social safety net? I mean, it literally is all a play to get some power for the time they're in office, get their name in the mouths of the various lobbyist groups and right-wing organizations. And for the right specifically, they have the ability of having another industry where they can go into, and that's the very lucrative conservative media industry. So, you know, there's a number of plays that they have in mind to, it's a grift, a number of plays in mind to make money by getting into office.
Appreciate the
no
call,
doubt
man.
about that. I understand that.
Thanks so much. Have a good one, all right?
Okay, thanks. You too.
I mean, obviously, I mean, you know, think about, you know, look, Matt Gaetz, when the story broke about this whole issue, we don't know, I feel like we're still missing some major plot lines here. But when that whole thing broke, it broke under the news of he was looking to leave politics and get a job with right-wing media. I mean, if he didn't go into politics first, who the hell is he to be able to look at that fast track into a high paying gig at Newsmax or One America News or Fox News or wherever the hell he was looking into?
Calling from a 940 number. Calling from a 940 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yep.
Oh, hey, Emma, Matt. It's great to talk to you. I'm Andrew.
Andrew.
Fort Worth.
Great to talk to you too.
Yeah, and I've been a fan of you ever since I saw you with Jordan Chariton, Bernie Sanders' first run.
Thank you.
I don't know about, yeah. Anyway, I'm a little scatterbrained now. I didn't expect to get on. Oh God, now I'm nervous.
It's all good. Just spit it out. Just get to whatever pops into your head.
No, there's a million things. First thing is a sports thing for everyone. I would ask this even if Sam was on, but I was thinking a monster league where everyone just gets to take all the steroids.
Yeah. Are you going to start a steroid league or a monster league?
I mean, the steroid league. I'm just saying, it would be a lot more entertaining. For me at least. I don't know, to see a bunch of inhumanly gigantic people clobbering each other makes more sense than just a bunch of really padded up.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a little stupid. And
come on, quick. You got 1 minute. Come on, let's go. Quick.
Sorry, guys, I'm nervous. I listened to George Floyd die 2 times yesterday when I was watching the trial. I had the body cam footage been around before then?
I think the body cam footage was new for the trial, and that's
Yeah, but it's it's pretty clear that even if the knee to the neck wasn't directly responsible for his death, that the escalation by the police caused him to have a fatal panic attack. At the very, very least, I think murder too.
Right. I'm not going to speculate on that, but I think the video footage clearly shows that the police acted improperly and certainly attributed to his death, and also did not care to assist him in any way when it became clear that he was no longer showing signs of life.
Yeah,
or at least was going through some sort of medical emergency.
Certainly, and it really I feel like the big the biggest the ignored part of this is so many people are living in a state of desperation, of economic strangulation. There are huge areas where the low SES communities are over policed, and where better to put police where people are so marginalized that they have to sell drugs to make a living, or they have little other choice than to be homeless. It's really just a system it's designed to take advantage of the most vulnerable, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, it's everywhere. I'm driving to Houston right now, and I see the same homeless people, unhoused people that I've seen for the last 7 years, and they just progressively are more bedraggled and beaten down by their situation. There's no hope. Unless very specific actions are taken to uplift these people.
Unless it's a targeted effort, and a lot of times, our our systems of government and our society just like literally wants to punish people for not succeeding in capitalism.
Exactly, and it's embarrassing that we're so callous. I mean, we're really two different cultures, two different societies living concurrently in the same place. They're the people who, I don't know if you're familiar with Kurt Vonnegut's book Player Piano, just as an example of dystopian future where there's the managers, the engineers, and then everyone else. And in this fictitious society, everyone else is sort of swept into the general military, which I guess serves as a sort of an Army Corps of Engineers, which I think would actually be a great idea for universal employment. Convert our military into just instead of breaking things, we fix things.
Well, I mean, they have so for example, I mean, there's like I forget which Nordic country, but in some Scandinavian country, it might be Finland. They have, you can either join the military or you can do years of public service. There's an option like that. But we gotta let you go, man. I appreciate all the things you brought up, and thanks for giving us a call.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sorry I'm so scattered. It's great.
No, it's all good. I get that way when I'm driving too. So appreciate the call.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good day, guys.
You too.
I get that way whenever I'm talking to Emma. She's extremely intimidating. I'm shaking right now just in her presence.
Well, I've never gotten that before, but how do you think of my addition to the soundboard?
Fast, come on, quick. You got 1 minute. 1 minute, Martha's sake. They don't want to hear this, Martha. Come on, let's go. Quick.
I like it a lot. I think it's great, especially when there's a nervous caller who, frankly, I'm going to assume gets more nervous upon hearing something like that. It'll really speed things up.
Literally nothing personal. It was just a prime opportunity for me to debut that part of the soundboard. So
I like it.
You want to do some more clips?
Yeah, let's get to some more clips. You guys didn't send it this time. All right, because you're just two of you. So let me see here. We got to do number 5. That's too funny. Yeah, number 5. You want to take this one though, Emma, and I'll chime in too?
Sure, absolutely. So Kristi Noem, 2024 presidential hopeful, and I guess this part of the timeline, Sarah Palin, but a little scarier because she's a bit smarter.
Just like a less personable Sarah Palin, I would call it.
Personable but more cunning, and I actually thought she was smarter until I actually saw this clip.
On a call with the White House today with all the governors talking about the specifics of this package, and I was shocked by how much doesn't go into infrastructure. It goes into research and development, it goes into housing and pipes and different initiatives, green energy, and it really is not an honest conversation we're having.
I would love for Governor Noem to explain what she thinks infrastructure is.
Yeah, I mean, of course it's housing, like she mentioned, but if there's one word more closely tied to infrastructure than pipes, I don't know what it is.
She was shocked to find out that pipes are involved with infrastructure. Yet, if we were to do a family feud about infrastructure and poll 100 people, what would the number one word be? It would have to be pipes.
Pipes or
maybe highways.
Yeah.
I mean, she's obviously thinking roads and that's it, like highways and roads. Like that to her has to be what she's thinking. But I mean,
which includes pipes though.
Right, includes pipes. But even before that, she says, what does she say? Planning and research. It goes into planning.
Research and development.
Research. Okay, but research and development. What does she think happens before they start doing the work to lay down the roads? Like, is she, do you think they just like, they don't have blueprints or plans, or like there's no sort of architectural research or development that goes into this sort of thing? I'm really trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but I shouldn't. And I know you thought she was smarter, being how many people died of COVID in her state. I honestly don't think she's smarter, but
that's what I'm saying. clip dispelled that. She's perhaps a more polished Sarah Palin. This should be the adjustment to that.
Hell, Sarah Palin's coming out, and even she is saying, I got COVID. You should all mask up. It's real bad, folks. I mean,
I didn't see that.
Sarah Palin is smarter. I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. It's really hard to say, but Sarah Palin is smarter than someone. And in this case, it's Kristi Noem.
There's a part of Interstate 94 heading into Minneapolis that has a little, it splits off into another highway for like a couple miles. And it's literally there to test out different types of road, research and development, right? Like what is better, what is more durable, what is best for traction for people's tires. Research and development, even if you just think of like roads or even like power lines, right? Like that's another like common one, like looking up how to do those correctly. And maybe there's some advances in technology we can do as we do this massive infrastructure. Like imagine we're just going to spend all this on infrastructure and not update the technology at all, which is not how this happens. Like when the government did this, like basically last push, basically in the New Deal, to build dams and a lot of the infrastructure that set the stage for the rest of the century. That was a lot of newly developed technology because guess what? The state can research and develop even better than capitalist companies can.
No. Yeah, that's just liberal bureaucracy, right? You should just lay the road wherever your heart tells you to do so, wherever Jesus tells you to do so, honestly. Research and development, that's just pork.
Right. Jesus, take the wheel of the concrete turner. Oh my God, what is that thing called? I'm having a mental block.
It was done well. It was funny. All right, well then we also have this next clip, which is my personal favorite. I saw that this was unironically said that it was pretty cool by Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who's a Democrat, by the way, but the Republican Party decided to put out its own hype video for its freshman GOP Senate class. Let's take a look and just break it down.
All right, freshmen, let's go to work.
I love the generic like rock music intro. Like you could really put in any kind of footage and try to like spice it up a little bit with this, Hives knockoff.
Oh yeah, this was definitely like $10 off of a audio stock website for sure.
Work.
Can you get the cameras out of the room while I'm getting my physical, please?
Right. Conservatives love saying everything is a HIPAA violation. I'm assuming this one has to be.
There's some Crocs. I don't know if you noticed in the bottom corner here. There's some Crocs under the table. So
right.
And also, what was that like? Giving a Boy Scout a coin? And notice how the female senator, Lummis, right? Limas? What is that?
Lummis, yeah.
Yeah, how she's the one holding the door for them.
Also, look at this art that she had of herself.
Right, her as Storm, right? Yeah, she looks just like her in every way, doesn't she?
Imagine making that for your boss, which I assume that's how that happened. Don't know what that means. Oh, fuck?
So I just want to point out the whole point. This is the GOP's.
Wait, there's a.
Oh, there's a. Okay, there's.
We
there's
got a little
blooper?
funny.
Is there a blooper?
Yeah,
Oh,
blooper
let's see.
here.
Blooper reel.
There you go. That's better.
I mean, I gotta say, why would you throw it before he's even turned the corner of the door yet, unless you wanted to peg him?
Right. But I like the idea that this is supposed to be like a video package to showcase the work that the freshman GOP senators are coming in to do. But literally nothing they showed has anything to do with their job as a newly minted U.S. senator. I mean, we see one of them being a doctor, one of them talking to a Boy Scout. Is the job of a U.S. senator to show a Boy Scout whatever the hell he was showing a Boy Scout? I'm very confused by this video because it pretty much showed us nothing.
Well, it did show us that Tommy Tuberville, I don't know if you know this, was a football coach.
Right. I like the idea too of the huddle there with his Senate aides. I'm dying to know what they were huddling about. What was it like? We're gonna go lie about Trump winning the U.S. presidential election in 2020. Huh! Let's do this.
I gotta say, sorry, Matt. I recognize Tommy Tuberville as a name from college football. Obviously, I did not know that was Tommy Tuberville. Even after they threw a football at him, he doesn't look like a football coach.
Oh, I knew because I've seen him before because he's a major conspiratorial. Yeah. But I did not know because I haven't really heard his name as much as reading it. I didn't know it was pronounced Tuberville. You're the sports expert. Is that true, Tuberville?
Again, I said we talked about this on the show the other day, but I try to stay away from college sports because I find it exploitative, shocking that a Republican senator came out of that rank and file. I'm like 80% sure it's Tuberville. It might be Tuberville though.
Yeah, I always thought it was Tuberville, but that's just because of how I'm reading it, not because I have any sort of knowledge for it to be that.
And do we have any what is going on here? What is this? What is this coin?
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's some Boy Scout thing we don't know about. I don't know.
He's showing at the train?
It's like some Chinese or Japanese writing. I'm not sure what script that is.
Is that an NFT? What?
I don't think those are physical.
That's an actual token.
They're digital. Yeah.
So, and why did the kid's mom leave him alone with it?
Yeah, I mean, you should not leave your kids alone with Congress people.
All right.
You're Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Like, I have no idea what that is. Anyways,
who's the senator that gives it to him?
Do we know? I don't know him by sight either. It's this guy though.
Let me look this up. Coin.
This guy.
Does anyone know what this coin is? I've never seen this coin in my life.
Honestly, what?
No idea.
People are saying it's Two Faces coin.
Is that Senator Harvey Dent?
Oh, that explains it.
Heads you live, kid. Tails, I have to teach you about being a U.S. senator in Congress. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that thing is. If anyone wants to chime in and let us know.
Rucker Carlson says, I have a friend who tended bar at Oxford, Mississippi, where Tuberville coached at Ole Miss. I heard he drank white Zinfandel and was a really lousy tipper. White Zinfandel, he's a white wine guy. That's odd. But, I almost respect it because it's like a lot of men don't like white wine. But
yeah, boring.
Zinfandel is a terrible wine, and I don't doubt that he's a lousy tipper.
I'm being told it's a challenge coin? What is that even? I don't. You're selling me challenge coin as if that's something I know by you. Oh, it's a challenge coin. Of course, what the hell's a challenge coin? Did you guys know?
No clue.
I'm Googling right now. A challenge coin is a small coin or medallion bearing an organization's insignia or emblem and carried by the organization's member. But what's that organization?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's Boy Scout related.
Is it Boy Scouts? But why is it in Japanese or Chinese?
Maybe the kid learned Chinese and got a medal for it. I have no idea.
I mean,
no
that
clue.
would be a scandal, isn't it? I mean,
Well, maybe well, we don't hear what he's saying. Maybe he's looking at that coin and going, "Kid, how could you? You fucking traitor!" It's like I don't know. Kid, let me tell you about the Chinese virus. Like, I don't know what these guys are saying. I'm sure it's something racist like that. I mean, I got no idea.
I don't know what lettering you're talking about, Matt. I didn't see that.
Look on the. That's what it's like. Oh, I'm now doing it. Matt, can you pull up the coin that we don't know?
Oh my God, this is important for.
Well, this is the fun half, and honestly, I think a lot of people are having fun with this.
All right.
There is some sort of. I don't want to say which because I don't want to. I'm truthfully not knowledgeable at this. I don't know if it's Chinese but it does look to be like some sort of Asian language, and I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable on this.
Branch symbolize. It's like this is a part of a cult.
But it doesn't make any sense though, because that's not like.
But if it
Chinese...
is, they've emphasized it. They've gone out of their way to emphasize it a hell of a lot. So I would be interested to find exactly what the provenance. If it's this challenge coin, like, well, what organization is that?
But the funny thing is too that those buildings on the coin look like those like Mexican the ones that are made out of like the that weird whatever it's. I don't know what I'm talking about. Those, you know what I'm talking about? Those like it does not look like Chinese or Japanese architecture is what I'm saying.
No.
I'm very confused by this coin.
NYPD was NYPD was in the news for the racist challenge coins they issued for certain precincts.
Maybe it's one of those. Maybe it's kid. Let me give you this racist coin.
For doing something racist.
And then
you're doing something racist merit badge.
Yeah, exactly.
Kid, I'll give you this coin if you could say Kung Flu. I mean, I don't know what else these guys would do. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
HR Data Monkey says all of us Boy Scouts are Chinese sleeper cell agents, which, you know.
Yeah. I'm beginning to wonder. Somebody says it's for the kid being 10 months sober, which is also fun.
Yeah, it could very well be.
Here you go.
Somebody's saying a Japanese Alamo coin, but that doesn't look like the Alamo to me either.
Japanese.
What are those? I feel like wait, a Pueblo coin? Is that what it is?
Why would
I have no idea.
I am Googling all different kinds of coins and no one. It's a Nambla coin.
Oh, no, I don't think
American,
it's.
No,
I don't think
North
it's
American
that.
Man-Boy Love Association. Yeah, it's like a pedophile organization.
That would be a scandal.
Yes. You never heard of Nambla, Emma?
No.
Okay, good for you. I'm jealous of that one. I'll tell you. I wish I didn't know what Nambla was either.
Oh, that was fun. Should we take we're gonna take one more call and then we're gonna get out of here? Sound good?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody just says this is the last note. It looks like it says Japan US on it, so maybe it signifies some kind of Japan US relationships. Maybe we'll have more tomorrow.
I'm gonna spend some time looking this up. I have to say. Calling from an 864 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this Emma the Vig?
This is. How are you?
Emma the Vig. Hi, it's Lori from South Carolina.
Lori
How's
from South
doing?
Carolina. Nice to talk to you. What's on your mind today?
Nice. Well, I just wanted to say a couple things first, real quick. I really appreciated what you guys said about college sports yesterday. I live up the road from Clemson University, and Dabo Sweeney makes about $8.3 million a year, which is just great. Really good for him.
He's a real asshole too, so yeah.
He is a very big asshole. But I really appreciated everything that you guys had to say about that. And also, I just wanted to say we were really sad when Johnny and the Vig came to an end, but I feel like Sammy and the Big has been very great. I've just enjoyed every minute of it. We really miss you over in the TYT family over there.
Thank you.
I don't know if you missed a call from one Rick Strom on Monday night, but he tried to call you. Did you talk to him?
I didn't. I forgot to call him back.
Oh, well, he's calling because he's now hosting Big Rick Energy on Monday nights, and we wanted to call you up and play some sports trivia.
Oh, all right. Well, I should have. I'll give him a text after this. I really appreciate the kind words about. I love everyone over at TYT, and John and I still talk regularly, even though his show is at 1 p.m. Eastern, so there's just like no way for me to be on. But I appreciate it, Lori. What else is on your mind?
Oh, that's it. I just don't tell John that I kind of like Sammy and the Big better.
Oh, I won't tell John. I will not. No one tweet this to him. I appreciate it, Lori. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Why don't we just take one more then, just because that was all about me.
Yeah, you know, that insider recall didn't count. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead. Let's do it, I guess.
Do we have a 510?
A 510. I'm sorry, guys. I said that was the last call, so some people hung up, but I'll answer this 510 number. Calling from a 510 number? Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Jason Miles from This is Revolution Podcast. I'm calling from Oakland, California.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I do want to set the record straight. I did not ask to do a fantasy football league because I actually hate fantasy football.
Interesting. What did you ask?
I love football. I love John Elway. There is a jersey of his that hangs over my bed so he can protect me at night, his spirit. Huge Bronco fan, but I'm not a fan of fantasy sports. That being said, what I wanted to do was do an NFL draft special.
Why
like break down 40 times, or what? What do you want to do with this special?
Is that the Matt Leck?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's it going, Jason?
North Dakota's own. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, kind of like have our draft predictions.
I'm down for that.
We're going to go.
I'm very down.
First round.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like they're not even doing a combine, so there's no actual 40 times. It's all just all over the place, and everyone's gonna be faster than they actually are. Yeah, just like the pro day 40 times, it's human error. It's just like I won't subject our audience to that, but why don't you? What's your Twitter handle? You can DM me. I might be interested in doing something for the draft. For the first time in a long time, the Giants don't have a glaring need, so I'm very excited to see who they get. But
I'm just worried that all of my input will be like, oh, that guy's from Kansas State. The only thing I know about Kansas State is like Terrence Newman used to play quarterback for them 15 years ago. All of my college sports info is about that old, but it sounds fun anyway.
Yeah. Just send. What's your Twitter handle, and we can DM about it.
Okay, it's TRI Show Oakland.
TRI
Revolution Show Oakland.
Oh.
TIR.
Oh, TI.
I'm sorry. I'm retarded. Sorry, I messed up. My bad.
It's all good. All right, I appreciate it.
And then real quick, Matt Bender, are you a bit of a metal fan?
Here and there, depends what the band is. More of a punk and hardcore type of guy, but why?
Oh no, I play the music and definitely see some of your shirts sometimes and wonder if you're a bit of a metal guy. Then your show's called Doomed, and I was like, I want this dude's a metal guy.
Yeah, there's a few metal bands, and there's a lot of crossover. There's like some sludge, hardcore type metal stuff that I like, and there's some good stuff out there. But I'm more of a punk and hardcore fan than metal.
Were you ever a Glassjaw fan?
I enjoy Glassjaw, but I wouldn't say I was like a big, like they're not like one of my faves.
That was like the only New York hardcore band I worked with was one of those guys.
You worked with them. Cool. What did you do?
Todd Weinstock produced a song.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I'll get out of your way. I know you guys, it's late where you guys are in New York. Thank you. And Emma, I'll send you a message, and have a good rest of your day.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
See you, Jason.
Here, before he asked me a question, I was going to make a comment. Would any other callers like to come and talk some very specific sports with with Emma anymore? Welcome. Come.
I keep discouraging it, but people, the people want it. So, but only a minority that it pisses off the majority of the audience.
But it's not even like sports, like broad sports questions everyone could follow. It's very specific. Like, Emma, your fantasy football team. Let's talk about that. Who? What?
All right, I'm gonna read some IMs, and then we can get out of there. Get out of here. Get out of there, here, there, and everywhere. Hey guys, love y'all. Matt Leck mentioned yesterday that we should double check sources when it comes to Uyghur Muslims in China, which I completely agree with. But don't you think that the fact that China prohibits any NGOs or the UN from visiting or reporting from that area by itself is a half condemnation of China? What are they hiding? It's like the Biden administration prohibiting media from taking photos inside the migrant detention centers. I'm not saying we should go to war or escalate anything with China, but at least mount diplomatic pressure and call China out for imposing media blackouts on these vulnerable populations. At the end of the day, no country will ever say, yeah, sure, we're persecuting these people. Come have a look. On the other hand, there are countless reports from Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and civilians running away and telling horror stories from inside, says Samuel Seder. I agree with all of that, and I don't think Matt said anything to the contrary, but
I'm fully ready to believe there's a cultural genocide going on there, but I do think that you have to work, because somebody posted here's a thread of sources that that you can actually trust, and I think the third one of them was a guy who's under a pseudonym who used to be a Kissinger Institute fellow, right? So it's like I agree that there is a cultural genocide probably going on the Uyghurs in China, but I also think there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of the information. I think and not to get Alex Jones, but there is literally like two states and an information war going on here, and I think it's you do have to double check those things, because again, even after saying what I said yesterday, one of the articles was from a journal and the guy was writing under a pseudonym. I totally think that there should be full-on transparency both at the border and at the Uyghur camps. I just think that people need to also understand where people are coming from when they ask for the veracity of these sources and what larger narratives in terms of national security that they're playing into.
I think all of that is very nuanced, both the IM and exactly what Matt said. The Train Boy says the NYPD once made a Stonewall challenge coin with a pride flag and a police badge. That doesn't shock me at all. Congressional Baseball Fan says it's a challenge coin from Philmont Scout Ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico. I believe the writing on it are pictographs.
Okay. So that would make sense as to why, it didn't look like, alpha. What is it? What is it called? The Arabic alphabet? What is it called? I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I feel like I know what you're talking about. Like, is the phonetic? Is that what you're talking about? No.
Like, how
it's one of those words though.
Spanish, English, Italian, French,
all the same letters,
German,
yeah.
like all the same letters. Whereas, obviously in certain Asian countries, and then some old groups of people, tribes, things like that, they used like that different types of lettering. Yep.
Show Rap says go Broncos, Elway's the greatest quarterback of all time and kind of a shitty human being. I think he's a top 3 quarterback of all time and agree he's a shitty human being. We'll take a few more IMs. Base SpongeBob said, since voter ID laws is such a hot topic, why can't Dems push for some type of automatic ID issuance? Or is that more a state versus federal issue? I mean, an automatic voter registration, that is not in HR S1 to my understanding. It's something I'm in favor of, but that's not something the Democratic Party's coalesce behind in with my understanding. So Aaron is not cool says you gotta hammer the quick over and over again. I am proud of myself for remembering to clip that. Spock O, here's one specific to you, Matt. Matt's last week Doomed podcast with Imran Ahmed from the Center of Countering Digital Hate was incredibly informative. Please talk about what he brought up regarding the anti-vaxxers' huge disinformation business. Who is on tonight?
Oh, yes. Tonight on Doomed at youtube.com/Matt Binder at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That will be live at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I will have USA Today reporter Will Carlos on the show, and he will be discussing the piece that he and two other of his colleagues wrote that really kicked off a whole big discourse on the internet this past week with especially Glenn Greenwald getting involved, where basically they did a report on how a number of the people who have been arrested and are facing trial for storming the Capitol on January 6th for Donald Trump are using different crowdfunding platforms to fundraise for their legal expenses. And, they basically did a report to see how this squares with various different platforms' terms of service, because a lot of these platforms usually say they don't want any involvement in this type of stuff. So they did a report on that. And, Greenwald called them out, saying he thought they were acting as snitches. And a lot of Greenwald supporters and fans piled on them, saying how dare they try to block any U.S. citizen from fundraising, which is clearly not what they were trying to do, and how everyone has a right to fundraise for their legal bills and for law representation. And again, it's not what they were trying to do. So tonight, Will come on the show and we'll talk about the piece. We'll talk about the discourse around it. It'll be tons of fun. It will be fun, but it'll be interesting. And for those who don't know, last week I had on the founder and CEO of a group that basically put out this great report called the Disinformation Dozen, which basically discovered that the large majority, something like 65% of all the anti-vaccination stuff that gets shared on the internet, well, at least on the major social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, comes from just 12 anti-vaxxer influencers. It really illuminating discussion I had with him about basically how, we talk about all these conspiracy theories, and usually you think like maybe just Alex Jones is making tons of money off of this. But when it comes to the anti-vaxxer world, there's a whole flourishing industry with many, 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 many people making absolute bank on, frankly, in my opinion, trying to kill people. So check it out, youtube.com/Matt Binder for the video and for the live stream, and then doomedpod.com for the audio podcast version of the show.
That sounds really fascinating. I want to listen now, and I
thank you.
I just might. The Tim Caucus says long lines at Disney are totally ride suppression. If a line is 2 to 3 hours long, I'm going to another ride. Exactly. We're going to do 2 more. Cuomo Sexual says, this is the question we need to ask every person that supports Georgia voter laws. How long does it take for you to vote? Oh, not 8 hours all day, because there's only one polling place to vote for a whole county.
Yeah, like I don't remember if we mentioned this, but like, yeah, if you're at a theme park and one ride's line is too long, you can just go to another nearby ride with a shorter line. You can't do that when you're voting. Well, for one of 2 reasons. Number one, you have to vote at your voting place if you want it to count for sure on the spot and not have to fill out like an affidavit ballot. And then 2, even if that was a possibility to vote anywhere, there are many people who live literally nearby just one voting place. And when I mean nearby, I mean like, we could be talking about an hour drive, 2 hour, I don't know how long, but a long drive for some people to get to their one nearby voting booth. So can you imagine if they had to go to a secondary one that was even further?
Absolutely. And I am trying to, and the final I am of the day. Cuomo says, my comment and observation is the right needs a new HRC, and AOC has already been primed for the new person to direct propaganda, rage, and hate towards. This is true. This will shape the minds of uneducated voters, and so they will be able to tie AOC to nearly every Dem to fearmonger voting for fascist light. I think if the left does not stop this kind of priming, just look at ARC. What they did worked too well, some would say. I totally agree, and Can
I just say on that though, like the substance of those politics are a lot different. Like HRC was not at all representing the class interests that AOC gets close to. So I think that is my judgment is that's a little bit too media focused take.
I don't think homosexual is making an observation that their politics are in any way, but like just for right-wing propaganda, they don't even need to make it that clear. They can just like rely on sexism and other basically emotional identifiers, and so make one specific person a boogeyman. But AOC threatens both parties.
Yeah, but I just think it worked better for HRC because she represents management and like to everybody.
Yes, that's true. Matt,
one thing that I just thought of when you were reading that was I saw this thread from a self-described leftist earlier today on Twitter that was getting tons of viral likes and retweets. We're just going through all the things like, AOC says she supports $15 minimum wage, yet she doesn't do this. And it's a thread of every issue. But like one of them was like AOC claims she cares about climate change, yet supports every budget for the military industrial complex. And it got tons of retweets and likes, like in the thousands. And one problem, AOC has voted against every single defense budget since she's been in office. I mean, it's just, they just love piling on her for things that literally are not even factual. Like it's just, she has become like the boogeyman for whoever thinks they can make a buck off of their followers hating AOC, I guess.
Yeah, who started that trend? Everybody, thank you so much. Matt, appreciate you, Binder, sticking with us, even though we're just two-handing it, so it's a little slower, but appreciate it.
Oh, it's all good. I was just, you guys take your time. I was just worried that you guys were going to block me from coming on. Anarchy at the Majority Report. You two are in charge. Who knows?
Ooh. All right. Have a good one, guys. Thanks, both Matts.
Oh, Nomiki's show at 3, right?
Yeah, yes. Nomiki.
Yeah, just kind of.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to make sure. All right. Take care, everybody.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth